Alright, we're having to do this through straight OBS because something wasn't cooperating, and even OBS, outside of the connection with Restream, was acting up. So, gonna have to do this just straight up, which means for those in the live chat, I will not be as readily able to see what you comment and react to what you comment. So, understand. Alright, just please understand. Live streaming is actually kind of a cruel mistress in that regard, and then unless you do live stream, you don't know a lot of the details and what's going on, especially since you don't know a person's individual setup. But yes, we are here to look at the Kent Hovind Mark Stoney lawsuit that Hovind filed back on the 10th of December. That's explains what he was doing going between Pensacola and Mobile, apparently. I guess Pensacola for his lawyer that lives down there, because the center of Hovind's universe is Pensacola, and Mobile to actually file said suit. But yes, we're going to attempt to look at the entire thing, all all of it. It's 40 some pages. I've converted the bulk of it to text to speech, of course, to save my voice. It is an hour and 45 minutes of just that raw audio. So, just understand, it's a lot. Without further ado, I'm gonna press play on the audio transcript, and we're just gonna get right to it. I'm gonna scroll along as it goes and interject commentary where I need to. So here's the opening section of it. Let us begin.
Plaintiffs Kent E. Hovind, Christopher Jones, and Paul John Hansen were defamed, with actual malice, by defendant Mark Stoney by deliberate acts of false, malicious, and serious allegations of acts of moral turpitude and criminal behavior. The plaintiffs have not engaged in any such conduct, and the statements made by the defendant have been found provably false. The defendants bring this suit against defendant Stoney for defamation by implication and intentional infliction of emotional distress. 1. Because the parties are completely diverse in citizenship, and the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000, this court has diversity jurisdiction. 28 U.S.C. 1332. 2. Venue is proper pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1391b. 2. A substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to the claim occurred in this judicial district. I3. Plaintiff Kent Hovind is over the age of 19 years and is a citizen of the state of Alabama. 4. Plaintiff Dinosaur Adventure Land Doll is a nonprofit organization, 501c. 3, located in the state of Alabama. 5. Plaintiff Christopher Jones is over the age of 19 years and is a current resident of the state of South Carolina. Plaintiff Jones was a resident of the state of Alabama at the time of some of the instances described herein. 6. Plaintiff Paul John Hansen is over the age of 19 years and is a resident of the state of Texas. 7. Over the course of several years,
I just want to point out it's kind of funny with the way everything gets set up, how it's going to be like the 19 years. Also, the 19 years thing is kind of interesting. Must be some special case when someone is 18 years old. So, yeah.
defendant Stoney acted with actual malice to cause reputable harm to the plaintiffs. Defendant Stoney lodged false allegations against the plaintiff, such as accusing Dinosaur Adventure Land doll of being a nexus for pedophiles, a child sex trafficking ring, and a cult. He established himself as a crusader railing against his own falsely manufactured conspiracy while putting the lives of the plaintiffs, and everyone living at Doll at risk with wild conspiracy theories, including kidnapping, drugging, raping, murdering, and burying bodies on the property. Defendant Stoney weaponized local, state, and federal agencies against Plaintiff Jones in the pursuit of his personal vendetta against Plaintiff Hovind and Doll. 8. The pattern and practice of defamation by implication and intentional infliction of emotional distress, spans the course of several years, as detailed below. 2021-9. Hovind and Jones have been friends for over 20 years. Jones is a sex offender who lives in South Carolina and occasionally visits Hovind at Dinosaur Adventure Land Doll. Stoney has volunteered and lived at Doll since June 2018. After Jones visited in 2019, Stoney vowed to leave if Jones were permitted to return. In January 2021, Jones returned, and so Stoney left Doll and moved to Walla Walla, Washington.
Now, this is pretty interesting in that, it acknowledges Chris Jones as being, as having a sex offender history. It doesn't hide it at all. I found that very interesting because Hovind tries to sort of skirt around that. But, yeah, they're just leading it right out in the open, which, I mean, they can't just lie about it. But, I don't know. That adds a layer of validity to claims that Stoney would have made, and it's like, well, hang on, this person has a history. We have to consider repeat offenses, especially since there are multiple independent cases against Chris Jones. So it isn't just a one and done thing like or anything like Hovind ever says it is in his many, many times talking about Chris Jones. But let us continue.
Stoney felt disrespected by Hovind. Stoney sought retribution and planned to turn Jones' sex offender status into a liability and then use it against Hovind and Jones. Stoney's primary objective was to destroy Hovind's ministry. 10. Day 1, June 26, 2021. Stoney began his slander campaign by appearing on the YouTube channel of Atheist Jr., an avowed
Shout out to AJ. You got mentioned in a lawsuit. Oh, it's just kind of funny how meta this gets. And of course, bringing up YouTube drama. But honestly, I mean, this is where the events would have happened, where the discussions would have happened that Hovind et al. Are objecting against. So it's understandable to bring this stuff up. But the quotes coming up are just kind of amazing.
atheist who had long been hostile toward Hovind and Christianity as a whole. Early in the interview, Stoney invoked a metaphor that vividly expressed his intention to destroy Hovind's ministry. But I think you and I know if you're going to chop down a tree, it takes a lot of work. And takes some time. It's not easy. You have to have some very well-aimed precision firepower to be able to take a tree down in one blow. Kent's one of those trees that you're just gonna have to chop away at until you get results. 11. Within this interview, Stoney slandered Hovind by calling him a fraud, a non-Christian, and a wolf in sheep's clothing. Stoney also slandered Hovind's ministry by claiming he pushes non-biblical Christianity.
I couldn't correct every single instance of the OCR and the text-to-speech having problems. So, if it thinks it's a T, it's a T. And I love that it thinks it's Hovind instead of Hovind. But, I at least had to fix, you had to use ChatGPT to fix things like the names being capitalized because it would read out the letters. So it would have read, within this interview, Stoney slandered Hovind by calling him a fraud, da 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 da. Um, and I'm going to say straight up, no, in that interview, he's stating his opinion on the matter. That's protected speech. And yes, there is a directed statement of going against them actively, against Hovind et al. But I feel that comes from a place of wishing to protect people and having been there and having seen what does and doesn't go on and knowing the kinds of implicit immunity that a group like Hovind's little cult get when um, accusations are made. It only makes sense that one would phrase things in such a way when he feels like he is truly trying to protect people. Hovind uses the same loaded language in all kinds of other cases.
You know, that's bad enough in and of itself, and I hope my Christian brothers and sisters that hear this can really grasp on to what I'm trying to say here. The man is a fraud. He's not Christian, he's a wolf. But even for the unbelievers that are gonna be hearing this, he's much, much worse. He protects pedophiles. He does shady business with shady people. He uses thugs to intimidate people. And he uses this religion, his religion, this is not biblical Christianity that he's pushing. He uses his religion to browbeat people into submission. And there's no way, unless you're complicit, unless you're enabling this, there's no way that a rational, logical human being can look at his situation with all the facts, with all the testimony, with all the information that's coming out, and be able to say that Kent Hovind's a good man. Nobody. Nobody can say that with a straight face and a clean conscience. Stoney further slandered Dahl by labeling it a cult. It's clear writing on the wall. There's no denying that Dinosaur Adventure Land is a cult. I denied it long enough. It's a cult. I was in a cult. I escaped a cult. Hi, my name is Mark Stoney. I escaped a cult.
Hello, my name is Kent Hovind. I run a cult.
Stoney also discussed Hovind deserving to be in prison. Atheist. Yeah, maybe it will be another 9 years of prison for Kent. Stoney, at least, I don't think he should ever see the light of day again. 12. Stoney continued to slander Dahl by falsely claiming ministry volunteers are harmful and multiple deaths had occurred as a result. In actuality, there was a single child who drowned in the lake while being supervised by.
Now, this is true as far as we are aware. There was only ever one incident of anyone dying at Dinosaur Adventureland, not doll, and that was the kid that drowned. But still, that's one too many. And the fact that nothing came of it is pretty frightening to anyone who I think has any sense of empathy, sympathy, or just a certain level of human compassion, especially when you hear the way Kent talked about it immediately following it once the news broke.
His own father. Stoney stating that multiple deaths occurred due to neglect by Hovind and Dahl volunteers is a highly defamatory statement intended to deter future visitors from the park. It's a deep, dark rabbit hole that somebody's gotta go down and expose because these people, they're harmful. Not just physically. Yes, there has been deaths around this from the neglect. 13. Stoney concluded the interview with 3 more highly slanderous accusations. 1. Jones had raped a boy at Dahl. 2.
Oh yeah, I've listened up to like about 10 minutes in. We're about 5 minutes or so in on a hour and 45 minute bit of audio, so we're going to be here a while. Things get intense going forward, so just be warned.
There is a very real possibility the rape.
And no, the text to speech is not going to get Zaire's name correct. Just let it be. I actually typed in Zaire, like the former country, and it still didn't pronounce it quite right, so there's no winning.
Happened with Hovind's and Hansen's knowledge. And 3. Hovind and Hansen are covering up this factual rape. There's a very real possibility that a boy was raped with their knowledge and an intentional cover-up of the fact. 14. Day 3, June 28, 2021. Stoney published a YouTube video entitled, The Cult of Kent Hovind. The video did not define cult nor discuss why Stoney believed Hovind was a cult leader. The video bore this title solely.
You know, I just want to point out the stressing that it doesn't define cult, but Hovind loves to bring out evolution is stupidest, most dangerous religion. It's a cult. He loves to bring that out. It's like, okay, Kent, do you want to define that, or should we file slander against you? A slander suit, because, turnabout's fair play and all that.
For its defamatory effect. The video consists of text messages between Stoney and his best friend Hansen regarding Jones sleeping in a queen-sized bed with a boy named Zaire in a house down the road from Dahl. The texts were legitimate, but at the end, Stoney added a libelous Faber iCat ion. Shortly after this text, Paul Hansen informs me that he actually found both the boy and Chris in their underwear, with Chris attempting to hide his erect penis. Prior to publishing this video, Stoney attempted to recruit Hansen to join him in scheming to fabricate molestation charges against Jones and Hovind, but Hansen refused to partake in this criminal conspiracy with Stoney.
You know, that's something, and again, I'm no legal expert whatsoever, but with the way legalese is, um, I find it very interesting that someone would have used the phrase scheming to fabricate molestation charges. Because the implication there is that this is a concerted effort to explicitly create fake charges, not to create a situation that is false where charges would be levied against somebody, but to create fake charges in and of itself. And if I can play armchair lawyer here, that difference, we know what they were meaning, but what's actually said matters. And in that case, it's as if Stoney and Hansen are somehow involved, like explicitly in the police department, acting on behalf of the police, of law enforcement, police, judicial systems, what have you, and are literally creating fake charges, which is, of course, something that Hovind claims was done against him and seems to be a go to for these kinds of sovsits, these kinds of just liars, like these kinds of evangelical nut jobs are. So grammatically, that is a fucking minefield. And I kind of love that because I feel if my uneducated self, I'm no professional lawyer whatsoever, but I have a fondness for legalese, and that's it. This is armchair stuff. If I notice that and it sets off a few bits of hang on a second, imagine how it's going to be to an actual, if this ever was to get anywhere, an actual defense attorney, let alone a DA and the like. Although again, I don't know details on how stuff actually flows. So I don't know if I'm listing the right people at the right time, right order, what have you.
15. Day 15, July 10, 2021. Stoney published a second video entitled, Double-Minded Man, The Cult of Kent Hovind PT. 2J, wherein Stoney accused Hansen of lying and covering up molestation in order to protect Jones and Hovind. Within this video, Stoney highlighted Hansen's texts about Jones sleeping in the same bed with Zygeyer and it being dumb many times over. Subsequently, Stoney posted an email exchange between Hansen and himself that occurred on June 25, 2021. Hansen: I was in my RV 20 feet from the house. I came into the house. The bedroom door was open. Chris and the boy were sleeping in the same queen-size bed, far apart as possible. The 13-year-old got scared in the other room and asked if he could sleep with Chris. Chris called his mom for permission, got permission. Stoney: with Chris hiding his erect penis and acting like he didn't know it was wrong. Hansen: Mark, where did you get anything about an erect anything? Certainly not from me. Chris was fully clothed, as well as the boy, and not even a hint of anything being hidden. 16. Stoney doubled down on his defamatory
So Hansen wasn't getting involved in this.
allegations by injecting his libelous claim of an erection into their emails, which he knew would be used in this video. Hansen refuted the erection, as well as any inference Jones slept.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Christmas where you just heard the phrase refuted the erection. I know this is something to be taken seriously, especially the context of the event being discussed here. But we've got to add some levity and just I'm hearing some stuff I never thought I would hear in my life right now.
In his underwear with Zygeyer. In so doing, Hansen's email constitutes his first documented rebuke of Stoney's perverted narrative. Stoney concluded the video by showing undated texts between Hansen and himself, wherein Hansen, still believing they are best friends, invited Stoney to move back to Alabama to live with him and his roommate. Hansen then sent a final text with a standing offer. / wish you well, and our invite is perpetual. Stoney's diabolical response via words on the screen was, sure. Might come visit you one day, in prison. This was the second time Stoney referenced prison, and it would prove to be a reoccurring theme throughout Stoney's slander campaign. In addition to destroying Hovind's ministry, Stoney sought to send Hovind and Jones to prison, and if his best
Hovind.
friend Hansen refused to assist, Stoney intended to send him to prison too. 17. Besides Stoney's slanderous assertion that a child had been raped at Doll, Stoney claimed that Hovind and Jones violated several criminal statutes. Stoney alleged that Jones committed a Class C felony when he resided overnight under the same roof with a minor, and that Hovind committed the crime of criminal conspiracy for having arranged it. Hansen, Chris didn't break any laws by going down there. Stoney, I disagree with that. Hansen, it wasn't Aga ins the /off for Chris. Stoney, with a minor child. Hansen, there was
I'm sorry, text-to-speech can only get you so far when the OCR is terrible. And everyone in chat's talking about lunch. I'm having lunch right now.
no, I haven't seen any evidence that Chris is in violation of any law. I'd like to look at it. Stoney, it's actually a felony. I think it's a Class C felony in Alabama for a registered sex offender to sleep under the same roof without any kind of supervision. It is actually a Class C felony, so Chris could be looking at felony charges there, and Kent Hovind could also be looking at conspiracy. Stoney also alleged Jones committed a felony when he failed to report to the sheriff. According to Alabama law, when a sex offender leaves his county of residence for a period of 3 or more consecutive days, he is required to report to the sheriff in each county where he resides. The Alabama code to which Stoney referred reads as follows. Code Title 15 Criminal Procedure Section is 20A15. A. Immediately before an adult sex offender temporarily leaves his or her county of residence for a period of 3 or more consecutive days, the adult sex offender shall report in person to the sheriff in each county of residence and complete, and sign a travel notification document. 18. Like the previous code, this pertains exclusively to sex offenders who are residents of the state of Alabama. However, in excessive caution, Jones always limited his stay to less than 72 hours. Jones' visit with Zaire in November 2019 was no exception. Zaire was out of school for the week of Thanksgiving, and so Jones used this opportunity to take Zaire to meet Hovind, learn about his creation ministry, and get baptized. Jones and Zaire departed from Augusta, Georgia, about 12:30 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd and arrived at Dall shortly after 6:00 p.m. Jones and Zaire spent 3 nights in the house provided by Hansen and then departed shortly before 2:00 p.m. on Tuesday the 26th and arrived back in Augusta, Georgia, about 9:00 p.m. The trip consisted of 3 nights and 4 days. Total time in Conecuh County was approximately 69 hours. 19. Stoney asserted that Jones and Zaire stayed 4 nights and 5 days, the implication being that Jones exceeded 72 hours without reporting to the local sheriff, and therefore Jones was in violation of the law and deserved to go to prison. Stoney proactively pursued all of the aforementioned charges with the Conecuh County Sheriff Department. Stoney's evidence consists of 2 text messages from Hansen. The first text is dated 11/24/20.
It's just kind of wild looking how far down the rabbit hole we've already gone. And that to try to express the that this is defamatory, the kinds of stuff that Stoney had done immediately leaving DAL, Hovind et al. Have to basically go into all of this stuff that no matter how you look at it, is still, for lack of better phrasing, pretty damn sketch. And just have to acknowledge, like, yeah, these very odd situations happen, but it's totally not what this guy said it was. It's just incredible that multiple people congregated together would live their lives in such a way that they're regularly having to explain situations like this. And be like, but it didn't get worse.
19 at 8:15 p.m. and reads Jones and Zaire slept in the same bed last night. The second text is dated 11/27/2019 at 4:35 p.m. and reads, looks like Chris left 3 hours ago. 20. These texts, which Stoney produced 1.5 years after the fact, wrongfully imply Jones and Zaire departed Wednesday the 27th instead of Tuesday the 26th. There are three plausible explanations as to why Stoney's texts state what they do.
Is was this part explicitly written by Hovind? Because this is the exact stuff he'd do in his slides. Well, you got three different ways to look at the evidences. It's like, no, no, Kent. You don't even need to go this deep. You're claiming it's a fabrication, but if you can provide, you're making a claim here, so that'd be a burden of proof on you to prove that the statements being made are explicitly false in contesting this, and only in that context. Whereas there's equally a burden of proof for those texts to have been proven to be accurate. It's kind of a tomato-tomato thing. But if you can show the actual times at which Chris Jones would have and would not have left, you would be able to prove that yes, the text messages are incorrect. But if you can't do that, eh. But since you're filing the claim that these are false, you now have to kind of prove that they're false.
1. Hansen forgot to press send after writing, "Chris left 3 hours ago," and so he sent the belated text at 4:35 p.m. on Wednesday after noticing the error. Hansen does not recall this being the case, but he admits this periodically occurred. 2. Stoney turned off his phone after receiving Hansen's earlier text at 1:04 p.m. on Tuesday, and he did not turn on his phone until 4:35 p.m. on Wednesday, whereupon Hansen's day-old text arrived.
Um, Texts can and will be time stamped, and there's going to be records, barring that this has been so long ago that the phone service providers wouldn't have gotten rid of those records. There would be records on when the actual data was sent to the system to eventually be relayed off to the other endpoint, i.e., from phone A through the cell network to phone B.
3. Stoney viewed Alabama's sex offender laws in search of a crime, and then used a PDF editor to alter the date of the latter text in order to manufacture this crime.
Yeah, this is all Hovind. All Hovind. Really? PDF editor? Just Photoshop the shit out of stuff. By the way, ask Trump and MAGA how PDF editing has been handling, helping them redact the Epstein files. Apparently that hadn't gone too well.
21. Stoney's other texts show that on Sunday the 24th, Hansen texted, "He is leaving tomorrow," and that on Tuesday the 26th, Hansen texted, "He is leaving late tomorrow possibly." Hansen was clearly unsure when Jones was leaving. Thus, Jones' departure on Tuesday the 26th shortly after Hansen texted, "late tomorrow possibly," is entirely plausible. Note that Stoney, instead of using screenshots directly from his phone, transferred the texts into a medium which allows dates to be easily altered. A PDF editor can just as easily change the date back to 11/26. 22. Being best friends, Stoney.
I just want to point this: the cries of conspiracy are hilarious because it's always people going so out of their way for stuff. When it's like, dude, you've got a multiple independent conviction pedophile hanging around a kid. At what point do you eventually realize maybe this is a bad look on a whole? As I said, it's already sketchy as hell.
And Hansen texted regularly, as is evident from previous days. Oddly, on the 26th, there was only one text exchange between them. It is also worth noting that when texts from the 27th are integrated with texts from the 26th, the time and context remain fluid, but without the uncharacteristic 24-hour gap in communication. Stoney, 12:59, 27 p.m. Will you let me know when Chris goes home? Hansen, 1:04:48 p.m. Late tomorrow possibly. Chris here, he stays at my house. Only visiting DHL is no different than you going to Disneyland. Your mom cannot hold that against anyone. Hansen, 4:35:17 p.m. Looks like Chris left 3 hours ago. Stoney, 4:38:56 p.m. Okay. Thanks. We are just now leaving the beach. It's tempting to sleep here, but I'd rather have a tent for Mackenzie Hansen. 4:40:24 p.m. You should have taken the tent with you. Stoney, 4:46 p.m. Yeah, wish I had one. 23. Stoney filed false reports about Zygeyer being molested with the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, National Human Trafficking Hotline, Alabama Attorney General, Alabama Law Enforcement Major Crimes Unit, Conecuh County Sheriff Department, Georgia Attorney General, South Carolina Attorney General, Aiken County Sheriff Department, Aiken Department of Public Safety, and possibly others. Because I've already talked to the authorities. I've talked to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. I've got a case number. I've talked to the Alabama Attorney General. I've talked to Alabama Law Enforcement Major Crimes Unit. I've talked to all these people. They're aware of what's going on. They're looking into it. There are investigations going on. These people have committed a lot of crimes, and they need to be held accountable. I'll know with all the investigations going on in Aiken and Augusta and other places, but the problem in Conecuh County is they're corrupt. 24.
I just find it kind of hilarious that it's able to pronounce Conecuh County just fine, but is choking on pretty common words. Although, again, in some cases, the optical character recognition from the original document scan is butchered, and so in the text that I extracted, it's gonna be incorrect characters.
In the prior comment, Stoney slanderously declared Hovind, Jones, and Hansen have committed a lot of crimes, and they need to be held accountable. Ironically, Stoney is the one who committed a lot of crimes each, and every time he knowingly filed false police reports with state and federal law enforcement.
See, who wrote this? Because that's not something you would put in. You wouldn't in this in a suit like this put in those kinds of just straight up opinion statements. That kind of little snarky backstab or attack attack back. Words. I can't English. This is all driving me crazy. Um, you would just. I mean, 24 honestly doesn't even need to be in there. It would be a matter of just saying this is the above would be slanderous accusations of crimes being committed without evidence being presented. I don't know. Like everything reeks of Hovind trying to get his little slaps in there. All right, don't slap and run. I'm gonna slap and run, but don't slap and run. It's not like I've seen, too many lawsuits and criminal complaints and all that jazz, but this reads like a bunch of clowns getting together, trying really hard to make themselves look good.
25. Stoney renamed his YouTube channel Mark Stoney Awfulshul and dedicated it to harassing, cyberbullying, libeling, and slandering Hovind, Jones, and Hansen, damaging their reputations, endangering their lives, and hurting the ministry. Stoney made dozens of videos attacking Hovind on everything wherein he found an angle.
As if Hovind hasn't done video after video, sometimes against people who left him, including doxing that one guy to his own, mom's house, what have you. And that's totally cool for Hovind to do. But once again, turnabout is not fair play at all when it comes to Hovind. It's like, oh, you can't do it, but I can do it. And this idea that people have dedicated themselves to certain things, especially in regards to Hovind, is really, really silly. Just he always thinks everyone's so obsessed with him, and it's like, no, just make a little special time out to laugh at you. But in Mark Stoney's case, he was there. He knows firsthand things that actually went on. And if having been there for those couple of years gave him the desire to contest to the degree he did, that is telling. Doesn't make it legally, right or wrong what may or may not actually be going on, but it's telling that he would feel so moved as to do this. And apparently, really, really upset these clowns since this suit has been filed.
26. Stoney's smear campaign was picked up by other Hovind-hating YouTubers including Atheist JR, T-Tor, Lies of the Devil, That Nerdy Trucker, Billy, Robert Bat, Big Bad Mama.
Billy doesn't even do anything anymore after the Charlie Kirk murder. He really, really got mad at the fact that a lot of us didn't care. So it is what it is there. Hope he's doing well.
Andy Lincoln, and others. Stoney established himself as a heroic
Also, yes, it just called Cindy Lincoln Andy Lincoln.
crusader fighting against an evil conspiracy which he himself created. 27. Day 19, July 14, 2021.
Oh, and wait a minute. Established himself as a heroic crusader fighting against an evil conspiracy which he himself created. Hello, pot meet kettle. That's all Hovind does.
Stoney posted on Facebook that he was ready to confront Hovind. Stoney admitted he was no stranger to a depraved mind and mentioned his past affiliation with actual white supremacists, literal Nazi types. Stoney's depraved mind may explain his overreaction of wanting to put Hovind, Jones, and Hansen in prison simply because Jones was permitted to visit Dahl in 2021. Stoney's post continued, Jesus saved me and I'm a new creation. Gotta say, though, that warrior spirit never quit in me. It's been there all along. In that warrior spirit, Stoney went on the warpath and appeared on numerous other podcasts to spread his Hovind-hating, child-abusing, cult-leading slander. Stoney was a regular on Brett Keene's YouTube channel Good Radio.
Good. It's God TV radio, little AI voice, but that's okay. You're trying your best. Still love the drunken peasants jokes. So, God TV radio, semaphore, smoke signal, telephone, telegraph, typewritten horse carriage letter. Oh, Brett Keane, the gift that keeps on giving.
Totaling over 100 hours. 28. Keene assembled a panel of individuals who expressed concern about Stoney's allegations.
So these individuals had concern about situations. Oh man, throwing out those old drunken peasants reference. Good times.
Including Hovind's ex-wife Cindy Lincoln. Stoney and the panel labeled Hovind as the leader of a pedophile cult, declared Hansen was lying in order to cover up VTND's and Jones' crimes, and asserted a child was likely raped by Jones at Dahl. Stoney and his cohorts began cyberstalking Ziegeyer, but were unable to find him. In 2021, Ziegeyer was safe at home with his mother in Augusta, Georgia, but the panel was persuaded by Stoney that Ziegeyer was missing. They concluded Jones and Hansen had done something terrible to him. 29. Day 166, December 8, 2021. Jones was shot with a gun at close range by an unknown assailant for unknown reasons.
Okay. Can you provide more info? Where's the police report? Can you provide something on that? Anyone out there able to look into this while we're going? Because this is the first I'm hearing of this. Not that I really care, but you know, I think he's trying to say that this is related. When I don't know, somebody with multiple independent child molestation convictions, probably, if I just had to guess, and I don't want to blame the victim here, but probably did something that may or may not created a situation where this would have been the a reasonable response. See that incident where the guy over by the phone, this is the 1980s footage where the guy hiding out by the payphones shoots the karate instructor that was molesting his son. The guy's a fucking hero.
2022-30. Stoney and the Good Radio panel continued to regularly convene and therein slander Hovind, Jones, and Hansen. The panel eventually claimed that someone found a small femur bone where Ziegeyer was last seen, and that someone found a tattered child's suitcase nearby. The panel speculated on air that Jones and Hansen murdered Ziegeyer and then dismembered his body. The Good Radio panel also claimed there were numerous other dead bodies being stored in containers on Dahl property.
Okay, totally acknowledge. That's fucking wild. That's obviously found to have not been true. That is pretty fucked up. I can't comment further. I wasn't watching this stuff because I'm sure as hell not going to watch a Brett Keane stream. Alright, just I'm not. Um, yeah, all of that is the most that Hovind has so far. Hovind et al. Have in the suit, from my opinion. Again, not a lawyer, but but I think that still can be defended as opinion and speculation, depending on how it's phrased in the actual stream. Because one paragraph describing the event versus the entire actual video, if it still exists, they're two very different things. And even then, it'd still take a lot, I think, for it to be actually found to be an issue. And given the context, I think that increases the vitriol that the claims being made by Stoney, Keen, and all would have to have had the directness to be considered to be slander liable, whatever libel, I should say, not liable, whatever the exact legal term defining that particular kind of communication to be, since there are varying different, the definitions are, it's a nested hierarchy. One is part of another, and then subsets involve particular things, whether it's written, whether it's spoken, whether it's recorded, whether it's in open discussion. It becomes a whole can of worms because the legal system and legalese by its nature is complex. It needs to be. But let's continue.
31. Day 317, May 8, 2022. XY Al Ayer's name and picture appeared on the webpage of Channel 12 newscast in Augusta, Georgia, as a runaway teen sought by police. 32. Day 358, June 18, 2022. Stoney arranged an interview with Hansen that was hosted by his new best friend Adam Lore. Stoney lured Hansen on the show under the guise of seeking truth. Stoney assured Hansen it would be a fair interview.
Let's see that right there, posted by his new best friend Adam Lore. What context does that have to actual legal value or not? It just seems like more Hovind snark.
At about the 25-minute mark, Stoney and Lore broached the allegation that Hansen caught Jones and Zygeyer wrestling in their underwear and Jones hiding an erection. Lore: so, Mark's testimony is that you told. Actually, I think this is Mark's testimony. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. Zygeyer and Chris were found in bed together in their underwear wrestling. Chris had his hands on Zygeyer, and Zygeyer was scared. And also that Christopher Jones had an erection. Hansen: no, not once. Lore: Mark, can you confirm what Paul told you? Stoney: that is my recollection, yes. 33. During the remainder of the interview, Hansen sternly refuted Stoney's underwear and erection allegations an additional 3 times. Hansen: I've never told anybody. I guarantee that if I seen anything that looked like a pencil or a screwdriver in a pocket that looked like an erection, I would remember it because that would just be cemented in my mind, and there was nothing like that. Hansen: he was not wrestling no.
Um, I just want to point out that and I think everyone here is going to understand that erections don't behave that way, and they would not look like pencils or screwdrivers in pockets. That's not how the human male reproductive organs work. Just just want to point that out. This description is extremely weird.
Kid. He was not touching no kid in the bedroom. I've never had a word of erection. I've never had a word of anybody touching anybody in the bedroom. I've never had a word that Chris, was in any other clothes than what he would normally walk around the camp in or, go to Walmart in. I've never had a word
Seriously, I couldn't have possibly been muted. I had to have been good. Whatever.
about XY Ed Ayer had any clothing missing. He might have had his shoes off, but he had his socks and his pants and his shirt on every time I ever seen him. I imagine he took a shower there. I imagine he undoth then, but I wasn't in the bathroom watching him then. But anybody that's saying that I seen an erection or I seen him without any clothes is completely lying, or they had a dream, and they're getting a dream mixed up with the facts. Hansen: with an erection, that's a complete lie. That's a complete lie, and I believe. Lors, that is what you told Mark. Hansen: that's a lie. I can say before God, I can say before God that I never mentioned nothing. I never seen nothing like that. I never mentioned to nothing, nobody like that. I never even had a dream like that. Nothing. That is a complete fabricated lie. 34. This constitutes the second, third, fourth, and fifth times on the record that Hansen refuted Stoney's accusation that Jones and Zygire wrestled in their underwear, and that Jones had an erection. Nevertheless, the slanderous accusation garnered attention, and so Stoney continued to spread this slander to listeners as well as to state and federal law enforcement agencies. At about the 42-minute mark, Lore questioned whether XY Ali Ree was the boy's real name or made-up sex name. Lore asserted Hansen, Hovind, and Jones were part of a pedophile ring that kidnapped and raped children, insinuating Zygire may have been kidnapped and raped in accordance with Stoney's and the Good Radio panel's conclusion. Lore.
Now, that is a serious claim. I'm not going to make a statement one way or the other on that. But, I don't know. Just, we say a lot in hyperbole, but what the actual facts are is most certainly not as extreme as the hyperbole.
We don't have any kind of evidence of what happened to Zygire after that. Did you see Christopher Jones leave with Zygire, if that is his real name? Actually, Paul, also can you answer, is it your understanding that Zygire is his actual legal birth name, N. Hansen? That's what I called him. No, one don't know, that's what I called him, and he seemed to respond to it perfectly fine. Lore, that's what you called him, Hansen. Why would I call him any other name than what? I asked him, what's your name, and he said, XY Al Iyer. Lore, because you guys made that name up because it's a pedophile ring and you guys are lying and kidnapping kids and rapping them and stuff. 35. Hansen was noticeably upset by these highly defamatory accusations. Hansen, this is insane. This is ridiculous. You told me this was going to be a fair interview. You can't accuse me of something that trash like that. That's just ridiculous. You're not worthy to be rated as a... Take it back. Take that back and explain why you just said that. Stoney, I do think it's unfair to say all y'all. Hansen, no, I'm not asking you, Scott. Mark, I'm not asking you. That other man needs to explain why he just said what he said. Why did he say that? Lore, what is it that you want me to take back, Paul? Hansen, what are you talking about, some sex ring and some made-up name? What are you talking about, XY Al Ayers, some sex name and made-up name? What are you talking about? Lore, so that's what, a lot of witnesses are suspecting is that this is a sex traffic, a Sea King ring, a pedophile ring, Hansen. What are you talking about? Where does that come out of? Where does that come out of any evidence? That's crazy. 36. Lore further alleged Zygire may have been murdered, and then his body dismembered and buried near Dahl. Lore stated the FBI was investigating Zygire as well as the allegations made by Stoney's cohorts regarding dead bodies on Dahl property. Lore. And then one thing else I wanted to ask you about. There are human remains, children's clothing that were found where Chris was, sleeping. Hansen. Oh yeah. Okay, so Chris is going to come on the air, some kid is going to show up and get baptized, and Chris is going to go, oh, where should I bury him? Man, I got to cover this up, I got to get rid of a body here. What am I gonna do? Oh yeah, let's put it here, they won't look here. Oh my gosh, this is such insane. This is just insane. Lore, it is pretty insane, like I've never almost. I think I might actually literally vomit from this. Hansen, there is no evidence of no child's bones out there, nothing. Lore. So it is reported there's eyewitness first-hand accounts that there were. Hansen, okay, show me the police report, Lore, I guess we have to pay like $100 to get it, but we're working on that. So we will have that once we can file for it.
Now, this is really, really interesting stuff in as far as the case goes, because we do know that unless there's a big lie going on there, which it's like not just being crazy talk, that Zaire it was fine is fine. So there's a lot being said and stressed here that yes, as Otaku points out, we're not getting tone and such because these are just transcripts of YouTube videos put into this lawsuit. But it is interesting to see what was being said and to get at least some, granted, out of context um, samples of the particular phrasings that appear to have been used and the levels of certainty and accusatoriness that Lore, Stoney are talking about this with regard to Hansen. And again, I'm not gonna, I'm not a lawyer. Can't necessarily pass any judgment on anything with this beyond, just commentary. This is definitely, I would say, some damning stuff. This is where I think Hovind et al. Have, as far as we've seen, the strongest uh, case, in that these are situations where it appears that there was a lot of doubling down on explicit accusations of extreme wrongdoing, not I think this may be the case, or I've heard, or just something crazy, which is already pretty big claims. And I'm not wanting to defend Hovind and them or anything on this, but when the fact of the matter is that, yeah, claims of pedophile rings and outright murder were made, that at least anything happened in Zaire outside of the contested incident with Chris Jones proper is up in the air. He's obviously fine though. Um, it makes it doesn't look good on Stoney's end of things. However, as some of you in the chat have commented, this still has very big slap energy. That it's just a I don't like what you're saying kind of suit. But if there's any merit anywhere in this, this is the part where I honestly think a line may have been crossed. That being said, how they felt at the time and what evidence they were going on is its own thing, and it could still be completely defended as what they truly believed at the time. And especially if they acknowledge after the fact that, okay, we were wrong, then okay, it's now compartmentalized in a time period with incorrect information, and they just extrapolated horribly wrong. But again, I'm no lawyer, so I don't know for sure how all of this actually works. And that's why I stress when we do mock Hovind that the claims of bodies on the property are false. Only one kid died there in the drowning incident. The Zaire situation is really, really fishy. And that I feel it is a cult compound. And I feel lots of very odd stuff goes on. And I will make allusions to uh, People's Temple type behavior because it seems reminiscent of that. But I don't try to directly claim such, as if it's just a rote fact, save for comedic effect. Um, and that's sadly not where um, Stoney and Lore seem to be coming from this. So I just wanted to elucidate my thoughts on that since we're getting into really, really meaty stuff, for lack of better phrasing.
Hansen, think about it, think about it. Okay, I'm going to bury a body right here. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, there were clothing found. There was what is claimed to be a human feet.
I'd like to point out that Polyphonics is bringing up in the chat, as someone who did watch the Brett Keane panels, a lot of the extreme statements didn't come from Mark Stoney. They came from people like Joanna, who are documented to be conspiratorial liars. The two is true. There's a lot of relaying of what I heard here, there, and everywhere going on, and indeed, context could be missing in these transcripts, these being presented. Of I heard from such and so says this, that, the other, and then the conversation continues. So a lot of that context on the actual video content really does matter here.
Femur bone. Hansen, yeah, claims, probably a cow bone. Lore, Mark, can you help me here? There was a suitcase found, something found in a drainage pipe. Andy Lincoln described it as some very
Keeps on calling her Andy Lincoln. It didn't realize that's Cindy. That's two characters. Oh, uh, this is what you get with the OCR. It's just, I don't know. I don't know, man.
disturbing things that were reported to the sheriff. This was also investigated by the FBI. Piopt were stopped at the airport and questioned about shipping containers and dead bodies. It's very, very serious. Hansen. Yeah, all linked back to that little place I was staying on. I doubt it. Exhibit 22B8. At about the 64-minute mark, Lore resumed accusing Jones of rape and murder. Lore. We just want to know that Zaire is okay. We want to know that he's safe. He's not. He hasn't been murdered. Hansen. Kent. I think Kent would agree that wouldn't be violating XY Al Ayer's privacy to do that. I mean, it would bring a close to everything. That would be a wonderful thing. Lore, well, it wouldn't bring a close to everything. He still raped him and was in bed with underwear and stuff, but Hansen, there's no
See, it's little stuff like that, that explicit accusation of rape. Um, mm, that's that's where things get rough.
evidence of rape. There's no evidence that Chris touched. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This was a camping trip. Lore, finding a sex predator in bed with a little boy in his underwear, quote unquote, wrestling with an erection and the boys scared. That is evidence of a rape.
Again, you're throwing out legally defined terms. This is risky stuff to be saying. Um, Mark Egan points out in the chat, I wonder if this will trigger some kind of Streisand effect. More of a spotlight on the cult compound at Temu Jurassic Park, potentially uncover something else that Hovind would rather left hidden? Possibly, and that's part of why I'm covering this to the degree that I am. And Rochester Swift points out, in context, a child had disappeared and had not been found yet. That's where where the discussion is coming from. Yeah, very true. We need to understand that at this point we still had no idea what, I say we in the collective consciousness in the Hovind verse. Congratulations, Hovind, you have your own universe. The HCU, Hovind Cinematic Universe. All Hovind all the time. Well, penis. Anyway. Sorry, I gotta bring some comedy because this is very, very serious stuff. But yeah, at this time, no one knew where Zaire was. Because it just, the incident with Chris Jones happened, and then the kid just kind of disappeared. And of course, it was later found out he's fine with family, everything's good. He doesn't want to talk about DAL. He doesn't want to be involved in any of that. So that's quite telling. But it could also be the fact that, he was 13 at the time. I think he'd be an adult now. And he moved on to making like rap beats and stuff apparently. So good on him for finding a creative outlet. He moved on with life.
Hansen, with an erection, that's a complete lie. That's a complete lie, and I believe. Lore, that is what you told Mark.
Zaire is just that spelling is just a very, very alternate spelling of the way we'd normally put it. Yeah, like Taku just put in Zaier. That's just a thing. Some people just go with crazy, I say crazy as if I'm knocking it. Just alternate spellings of names. Look at the weird Rebecca's and Kaylee's out there where there's like 500 extra letters and it's the same thing.
Hansen, that's a lie. I can say before God, that I never mentioned nothing. I never seen nothing like that. I never mentioned to nothing, nobody like that. I never even had a dream like that. Nothing. That is a complete fabricated lie. Lore of Mark, wait, real quick. Mark, can you respond to that? He's saying that's a lie. Your testimony is that Paul told you. Can you reiterate it? What did Paul tell you the first time? Well, in person, he took you to the side in private and said off the record, get rid
Dag,
of your phone, I want you to hear this.
Dagnabbit, I lost the location I was at. This is gonna be fun getting back to it. Give me just a sec. I'm gonna let this play and I'm gonna catch up. I think I know where I am.
Stoney. Yeah, so when Paul came and talked to me about that, He did tell me that they were in their underwear and that Zygeyer appeared to be afraid. Later on, Paul came back and told me that Chris clarified and said they were in their gym shorts. So, take that for what it's worth. That's what Paul told me. Hanson, now remember, afraid. Yeah, Chris told me he didn't want to sleep in that other room alone. That's probably
I should stress, if you weren't here for the beginning, that it does. I did when I did the text to speech, I actually converted it to the normal spelling, and it still pronounced it the same way. It actually does not know how to say Zaire.
why I would use the word afraid. I never Zygeyer when I walked in that room. Zygeyer was completely asleep on his side of the bed. Completely closed. 37. Lore and Stoney ended the interview by hurling more insults at Hanson. Lore, I apologize, Mark, you said it's too much and I'm getting overwhelmed by this. I want to say, Paul Hanson, you are a sick fuck. You are the scum of the earth. You are complicit in this. Mark, I apologize if that interferes with anything you have going on with Paul. And I appreciate you setting this up, but I just got to end this because I'm going to have like an anxiety attack or something. I really want to thank Mark Stoney for arranging this. I think this was a lot of good evidence. I appreciate those who showed up in the comments section, and Mark, if you want to, add anything at the end, we can wrap up because I gotta stop doing this for a minute. It's too much. I'm having a physical reaction and I need to take an anxiety med and just chill out and play Tetris or something. Stoney, I'm kind of with you. I'm not feeling too great. I went through 6 months of therapy with my daughter after all this really hit the fan and just, man, it's coming back. I'm with you. I got to step aside. 38. Day 416, June 15, 2022. Stoney appeared on Good Radio to talk about Hovind receiving therapeutic massages in his bathing suit and in his boxers. Stoney's intent was to sinisterly fabricate a similar pattern of behavior between Hovind and Jones. First, Stoney made the false comparison that Hovind and Jones had both been inappropriately in their underwear. Second, Stoney made the false comparison that Hovind and Jones had both been in inappropriate situations with children. Stoney then falsely alleged that Hovind had enticed his 6-year-old daughter to give him some massages. 39. Hovind and his wife Sandra heard a lot of depraved gossip around town.
um, Ex-wife. By the time of this thing being filed, they were full on divorced. So apparently this had been pre-written like a while back, especially because of the YouTube URL we see here, which is funny that they happen to have it. But I'll wait till we get to that.
Hovind was often given strange looks and avoided by locals. Andy Lincoln, his ex-wife, is on the Good Radio panel with Stoney, and she further fueled rumors about pedophiles, the missing boy, and dead bodies at Doll. Lincoln reposted several of Stoney's videos on her YouTube channel, which are still available. https://www.youtube.com/@Cindelincoln40. In late June,
That's okay. Uh, I'm sorry, that's where the 40 was. The text-to-speech doesn't read paragraph breaks. It's amazing. Um, this is interesting because combined with the Hovind's wife, Sandra, which is no longer a valid statement, when you add in that in the same part 39, they bring up Cindy's channel, which has since been taken down. This had been written and prepared apparently many, many, many months ago, if not over a year ago, given that in January it'll be a year since Sandra left Hovind.
2022, Lincoln found the correct spelling of XY Al Ayer's first name in her notes and relayed it to Stoney. Stoney searched XY Al Ayer's name on Google, whereupon it hit on the Channel 12 newscast website. Stoney then obtained XY Al Ayer's last name and was able to make contact with XY Al Ayer's sister on Facebook. After 1 year of searching, Stoney connected with Zygeyer, the boy from Doll who was key to his efforts of imprisoning Jones, Hovind, and Hanson.
See, in that right there, the implicit claim that all Mark Stoney explicitly wants to do is, by whatever means necessary, get Jones, Hovind, and Hanson imprisoned, rather than an idea that the truth needs to get to the authorities who can investigate it and justice be served if violations are found.
41. Day 368, June 28, 2022, Stoney talked to XY Al Ayer's mother, Latisha Griffin, and arranged for an interview which he then posted on his YouTube channel. Stoney had no intention of letting this opportunity go to waste. Instead of conducting a fair and unbiased interview, Stoney incited Ziegeyer and Griffin with a series of inflammatory texts prior to their phone call. Griffin, but I have sat here right before I called you, before I even text you anything. I texted you from his phone. Before I did anything, Ziegeyer let me read the messages between you and Ziegeyer, and I read these messages. And it brought up a whole pool of everything. 42. Stoney's incendiary plan worked. Ziegeyer and his mom were troubled by his texts and were riled up during the interview. Stoney never revealed the content of those texts. Their existence is only known because of Griffin's statement cited above. Nevertheless, judging by their reactions, much of the context of those texts can be construed. First, they included Jones' conviction and status as a sex offender. This was not a surprise to Griffin because Jones had been forthright and disclosed everything to her early in their relationship. Griffin, also no, but I am not going to lie on that man either. I'm not going to lie on Chris. He did tell me when I first brought him around my family, he did tell me that he had charges and he told me that they were not true. Griffin, Chris already told me he was convicted and everything. 43. Ziegeyer did not know Jones is a sex offender. That is something Griffin should have decided when and if to disclose to her son, not a stranger pursuing an agenda. Stoney texted this information to Ziegeyer without Griffin's consent. There was no reason to disclose such information to Ziegeyer other than to break any loyalty he held toward Jones. It does not change the facts, but it creates a highly prejudicial situation which routinely causes individuals to stray from the truth. For this reason, such disclosures are not permitted in Tegel proceedings. Stoney was essentially witness tampering before Ziegeyer had an
Integral proceedings, everybody.
opportunity to make his official statement. 44. The disclosure caught Ziegeyer off guard. A link to South Carolina's registry proved Stoney was telling the truth. Deception always entails truth mixed with untruth. Having gained XY Al Ayer's trust by revealing Jones to be a sex offender, Stoney then peddled his false claim that Ziegeyer spent 4 nights at Dahl, not 3 nights as he remembered. Stoney postulated the reason Ziegeyer could not remember one of the nights was because he was drugged and probably raped by Jones before being passed around to others at Dahl. This was the perverse.
Well, I'm gonna vomit. Sorry for ruining everybody's Christmas with that line. I'm in the wild territory just like the rest of you though. Like I do not know what's coming. I have in no way read anywhere near this far. Also, I just realized I had the chat set to top chat and not live chat, so I was missing some of the awesomeness of everyone. Because I noticed Tyler's in the chat, our friend Pluto Pilot. How's it going, buddy?
First context in which Stoney interviewed Griffin. After hearing Stoney's accusation, Griffin was angry, emotionally distraught, and prone to fabricate allegations against Jones in seeking justice for her son. 45. The interview was heavily edited, but within the first 10 minutes of the posted version, Griffin stated 3 times that Ziegeyer was excited when he returned home, and while telling her about everything he did at Dahl, he mentioned Jones touched his penis with a paper towel. After an edit, Griffin asked Ziegeyer to elaborate on the paper towel incident. In spite of Griffin,
And I just want to note that the way this is all structured, because remember, we're in the document regarding Squeaky Chair, a suit being filed by Hovind et al. Against Mark Stoney, claiming defamation, that has to go through all of these details and just allege that all of this stuff that may or may not have been on any law enforcement radar to a court. So basically, what we have is the creation of an entire investigation into the validity of these events that then, upon determining the validity thereof, whether the claims thereof, whether these did or did not happen as Stoney describes, would then determine if potentially Hovind et al. Have been slandered slash libeled slash whatever. So unknowingly, Kent and Co. have just created an investigation into everything involving DAL and its relation with children. Notwithstanding Chris Jones in and of himself, and a very likely investigation into his travel behavior at the time. This is going to blow up so spectacularly in Hovind's face. We won't be able to do anything but just laugh for like a week straight. I kind of love it, but I also kind of hate that Zaire and everyone else involved is going to have to be drugged back through these events. Because I don't see a chain of logic that doesn't involve an explicit investigation into all of this actually occurring. Something that apparently Hovind et al. Had gotten away without having happened. So this is going to be something else.
Repeated assertions it occurred at Dahl, Zaire changed the time and location. You know when you walk in, like the front way of Boost Mobile. Yeah, it was right there. When pressed for details, Zaire stumbled through an answer. They was off, but Yepel oh, I see what you mean. So he, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. But no, he had pulled them pants down. Stoney then asked Zaire if anything happened at Dahl.
And Laura, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Send him this.
Zaire responded, "It's not at Dino Land, it's somewhere else." 46. Griffin subsequently pretended she never stated the paper towel incident occurred at Dahl, but only that XY at Iyer disclosed the paper towel incident which transpired years earlier at Boost Mobile during his telling of the Dahl trip. Griffin stated, "I ain't asked this boy about this story in over 4 months, and it's still the same story."
Wait. Hang on. This sounds more like. So they're trying to say this happened at a Boost Mobile. No, this seems to be Zaire describing in something that he can relate to, i.e., a cell phone store, that the layout and the location where this happened, insofar as in the context of the building, would have been effectively the same way of immediately walking in. There's area A, area B, and this happened in area A of the location previously described. Wow. How do you even think this says what they're wanting it to seem like it says without outright lying? It's the only way.
Griffin claimed that Zaire had maintained the story for over 4 months, but ironically, they were unable to maintain the same story for 20 minutes. 47. The end of interview narrative entailed Zaire returning home from Dahl in November of 2019 and excitedly telling Griffin about everything that happened at Dahl, but added that Jones had touched his penis with a paper towel years earlier in the back of a Boost Mobile store. Griffin alleged that after Zaire revealed this to her in November of 2019, she stopped communicating with Jones and forbade him from coming around her family under threat of calling the police. 48. Stoney later provoked Griffin to consider that her son may have been penetrated by Jones and others at Dahl. Griffin responded to the sickening accusation by lashing out at Jones.
Ugh, this is deep. This is so fucking deep, and I don't know how far it goes to just being focused just on the Zaire incident. Jesus Christ. This, if you're running and focused on a proper ministry, this should not be anything you ever have to fucking deal with. This isn't normal. Having to defend against these kinds of claims is not normal. And Hovind wouldn't have this issue if he didn't invite a known child molester to Dinosaur Adventureland. When is he, I know the answer, but I'm going to say rhetorically, when is he ever going to acknowledge maybe this is a bad idea and maybe I shouldn't have a pedophile have an open invitation to my theme park in quotes, ostensibly aimed at children and their families?
and bearing false witness to the facts. There is proof what Griffin alleged is untrue. Griffin admitted in the interview that she owed Jones $5,200. Griffin, I do owe Chris $200 in cash. How he gonna get it, I don't know. Stoney, you don't owe him anything. Jones loaned Griffin money via Cash App. Receipts show these transactions occurred as late as June of 2021, disproving Griffin's assertion she had cut ties with Jones in 2019. Griffin's assertion is further disproved by XY Al Ayer's admission that he went camping with Jones in fall of 2020. Griffin stated she always asked her children if they had been inappropriately touched every time they returned from someone else's care, but when asked about Jones, they always denied anything inappropriate occurred. Griffin, anytime my children leave anywhere, not in my care, I do ask them, did anybody touch you? Did somebody? And whatever they say. But it's always been no, mama, what you talking about?
Oh, yeah, like the housewife who looks like someone just took a sack of oranges to her, just fell down the stairs in a one-story home. Yeah, like that.
If the paper towel incident occurred at Boost Mobile in 2017, then either Zai Al Ayer lied for years when Griffin asked if was inappropriately touched, or Zygeyer began lying after Stoney deceived him into believing Doll is a pedophile cult, and an entire day of his trip is missing from his memory. Griffin also stated, I ain't asked this boy about this story in over 4 months, and it's still the same story. Griffin stated this in June 2022, so 4 months prior was February 2022. If Zygeyer disclosed the paper towel incident in November 2019, as Griffin alleged, then Zygeyer should have maintained the same story for 2% years, not merely 4 months.
That should obviously be 2.5 years. My God, OCR is terrible.
49. Stoney further ingratiated himself into the family by claiming he had searched for Zygeyer for 3 years, since Zygeyer left Dahl in November 2019. Hovind and Hansen both say Stoney never expressed any concern for Zygeyer until the summer of 2021, after Stoney left Dahl. In actuality, it was a necessity that Stoney feigned concern about Zygeyer being molested or murdered since November 2019, otherwise his ruse is exposed. It makes no sense that Stoney remained silent about a possible rape and murder for 2% years until he arrived in Walla Walla, Washington. Stoney readily took credit for starting the slanderous rumors about Zygeyer sex trafficked, raped, murdered, but he said he was happy to know Zygeyer was alive. Stoney. And listen, I'm just so happy, I don't even know what else to say. I am so happy to be able to talk to you. I am so happy to know that Zygeyer is alive. My goodness, like you would not believe the speculation that was going on. And I'm the one who kinda started like, where is Zygeyer? What happened to him? 50. Stoney seemed unfazed by XY Al Ayer's admission that nothing occurred at Dahl. After a year of peddling slanderous allegations entailing Jones sleeping in his underwear with Zygeyer, Jones and Zygeyer wrestling in their underwear, and Jones hiding an erection, Stoney nonchalantly transitioned to this new allegation of Jones touching XY Al Ayer's penis with a paper towel in the back of a Boost Mobile store. There was no mention of the defamatory allegations Stoney repeatedly made over the past year. Stoney had not only viscously slandered Jones,
Viscously slandered Jones. Viciously. Viscously slandered. That sounds pretty hilarious, though. I'm going to slander you with a very thick liquid.
Hovind and Hansen via dozens of videos and appearances on other podcasts, but Stoney created permanent government records of his defamatory accusations. At the time, there were open
What does permanent government records mean? What are you talking about, Hovind et al.? You mean Videos, those aren't government records. They're just videos. They can be taken as evidence, but it's not a government record. I'm gonna guess this is some SovSit lingo.
Investigations in Aiken, South Carolina, Augusta, Georgia, Conecuh County, Alabama, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations. 51. Stoney used the ongoing investigations to persuade Griffin that she is part of something bigger, but Stoney concealed the fact that he is the one who started these investigations under the false premise XY. Ed Iyer had been molested at Doll Stoney, continued to demonize Jones, and pressed Griffin to prosecute. Stoney, it's gonna happen. That's something that I wanted to talk to you about because I've been talking to the authorities for, a year now. Griffin, really? Stoney, V, and the hang-up this whole time I didn't know how to spell XY Al Iyer's name. Stoney, we gotta take care of this. That man needs to be in prison. Actually, he needs to be shot. Stoney, but rest assured that justice is going to be served. Chris is going to get his. Stoney, so we're going to hammer him Jones.
Hmm. Yes, you add in the Jones right there. Okay. Just you know, don't think you're supposed to do that. And I'm going to defend on hyperbole Stoney saying he needs to be shot. That is especially, in the South, kind of a common enough phrase. You ought to be shot. Kind of a colloquialism in its own right. That definitely is a, a risky one to say, but it's a known colloquialism that implies, like, not explicitly, but imaginatively, that would be also an ideal outcome.
Stoney, well, here's the good thing. Here's the positive of this. When I go and talk to the people I'm going to talk to tomorrow, there are professionals that know how to handle this carefully. And they're very good at getting accurate information. 52. Having had a little time to ponder the seriousness of Stoney's accusations, as well as hearing Zaire deny anything happened at Doll, Griffin expressed doubt that Jones had touched her son. Griffin stated that Jones doesn't need to be punished again for his prior conviction, which is not something a mother would say if her child truly disclosed Jones touched his penis with a paper towel. Griffin. And he Jones, I did respect me as a person. And Arama be 100% honest with you right now, because he did listen. I don't feel like Chris if he did anything. I feel like he is a changed person, but I don't need to find out the hard way. Stoney. Right. Griffin, but I don't feel like he needs to be punished for something that he did in the past if he's not doing it today.
And this provides something interesting. Griffin's reaction to this of thinking Jones didn't do anything has its own weight, but the facts are what the facts are. And her opinion on what did or didn't happen wouldn't change if something did or didn't happen.
53. In spite of her doubts, Griffin was persuaded to press charges due to the multiple open investigations. Zaire saying he woke up at Doll feeling weird. Although Griffin admitted Zaire never alleged this previously and her parental instinct to prevent other children from being molested. Griffin, but see, I'm just one mother. If he didn't do nothing to my son, he can get the next one, or he probably did somebody. And nobody needs to go through this. Stoney, nobody. 54. After the interview, Stoney contacted Special Agent Chris Kletthamer at the FBI.
It can read Kletthamer, or Klettheimer if you prefer. It can read that, but it can't parse Zaire, even spelled correctly, and, and parsed Cindy Lincoln as Andy Lincoln. Oh, I don't even understand how. Oh, I'm glad we have these moments of levity and what is extremely dark material. By the way, we're almost halfway through this thing.
And was scheduled for a telephone interview on July 5, 2022. 55. Day 369, June 29, 2022. Griffin filed a criminal complaint with the Aiken County Sheriff in South Carolina. It entailed the allegation Jones touched Zeigeyer with a paper towel at Boost Mobile between November 2015 and November 2016, when he was 956. Day 369. On that same day, Stoney called Hovind.
Okay, see, this is just insanity claiming that Chris Jones was somehow exposed to Zaire in 2015 when Boost Mobile stuff. What? What? What is even going on?
Dee's wife Sandra to give her an update. Stoney often convened with Sandra to divide them on this issue and to subvert their marriage. Stoney recorded this conversation without Sandra's permission, an illegal wiretap from Washington State, and he posted it on his YouTube channel.
You know, it just now hit me. I think it's worth noting that the fact that Cindy Lincoln is an ex-wife of Hovind, whereas here it's still mentioning Sandra as a current wife, it didn't mention her being an ex-Cindy, and I think that's kind of telling.
57. Stoney informed Sandra that Zeigeyer alleged Jones had touched him with a paper towel, but it did not happen at Dahl. It's not certain that he was molested at that house. They did sleep in the bed together. And what his mother told me was that Zeigeyer woke up and felt unusual, like weird physically. And he didn't know what it was, but he didn't recall anything like that happening there. But the fact remains that he was molested. I mean, it may not have happened at Dinosaur Adventure Land or at that house, but that was just a step in the grooming process. 58. Stoney explained to Sandra what he had been told about the paper towel incident in the back of a Boost Mobile store. So anyway, Zeigeyer, told his mother about 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago that, one time when she went to go get lunch while, Chris was staying at the store with, Zeigeyer, that Chris lured him into the back room and pulled his pants and underwear down and groped him with a paper towel. No, it wasn't a bathroom. It was like a supply room in the back. And she said there were no lights, no cameras. And Zeigeyer told her that Chris had told Zeigeyer that there was a cooler, like a drink cooler or something back there, and he wanted him to go back there with him and get a drink. And once they were in the room, Chris just pulled his pants and underwear down, and I don't know where the paper towel comes into play. I don't really understand what's that about, but that's how Zeigeyer described it.
I mean, this is just insanity. That Hovind et al. Think that going into this detail on all of these accusations is at all going to look good on them. I just, I don't understand it.
59. Stoney boasted about the family wanting Jones to go to prison and said he didn't blame them, as though the idea originated from the family and hadn't been his objective this whole time. Stoney, they want justice. They want Chris to go to prison, and I don't blame them. 60. Stoney did not apologize for slandering Hovind and Dahl for over a year, but he admitted he had been hard on Hovind. Stoney claimed the reason he did so was to find Zeigeyer. In other words, yes, he had standard Hovind, but it was for a good cause. Stoney, as far as you know, I've been putting. Sandra, I'm listening, Stoney. I've been putting a lot of pressure on Kent with videos and text messages and talking and all this because, and it was only because I wanted to find Zeigeyer, I gotta find him. And that happened. 61. Sandra relayed to Stoney the devastating effect his slanderous rumors had caused within the local community. Sandra, of course, around here the stories were. I go into a thrift store and I'm like, hey, would you like to come to Dinosaur Adventure Land? And I'm excited.
And I'd be like, hey, you gonna buy something or get out?
I'm making it look green and everything. Oh, I can't go there. RM like, why? So I hear that there's dogs eating kids' bones and stuff. I'm like, oh geez, you can come see for yourself. So some of what I've experienced has kind of been weird. Stoney, yeah, I'm sure.
And you're directly attributing that specifically to what Stoney said, as opposed to the fact that people, especially in small communities, talk. People will manipulate stories subconsciously. Rumors will start and just keep on bouncing around. And next thing you know, when you're running a weird Christian dino park and behaving the way that Hovind and the like do, people kind of just start saying stuff. It's got to be all Mark Stoney. It can't be that. It can't just be y'all's presence is weird.
62. Day 370, June 30, 2022. Zaire Arnett with investigators in Augusta, Georgia. Zaire was asked about his relationship with Jones and the things they had done together. Zaire mentioned watching Highway to Heaven and said, "He got me addicted to that show." Zaire also said, "Jones would teach us he and his siblings one at a time, teaching us Bible study or whatever, which I wasn't really paying attention to it." About 15 minutes into the interview, Zaire was asked about the paper towel incident, but he didn't offer any details. Interviewer: "So, tell me about the touch with the paper towel." Zaire: "It was just weird." Interviewer: "What kind of touch was it?" Zaire: "I don't even remember really how he did it. I just know he touched it."
So we have Zaire talking to an interviewer, quote unquote, and acknowledging that something happened. And this didn't go somewhere else? Please explain to me how this didn't go somewhere.
63. Zaire quickly redirected the conversation to Stoney. Zaire said they had spoken 2 days ago, explained how Stoney found him through his sister by saying he said he knew some things about Chris, and bragged about Stoney saying he is famous in Alabama. Zaire: "Stoney said, 'You know you blowing up over here, right?' I was like, 'For real?' 'That's crazy.' Stoney said, 'A bunch of people know you over here. You know you're famous, right? Ever since I went over there, everybody was just calling me famous and saying, 'You got something in you.'" 64. Herein another of Stoney's tactics is revealed. Stoney deceived XY Al Iyer into believing he was famous for his dancing and rapping, not for being the missing boy who was allegedly raped and possibly murdered. Zaire said that Stoney and his friends were going to help him become more famous. Zaire basked in his fame and said he knew it would happen from the moment he appeared on Hovind's YouTube broadcast. "The camera was on me. Knew then I was going to blow up." Stoney took advantage of XY Al Iyer's misunderstanding of being famous in Alabama and cleverly positioned himself as the conduit to XY Al Iyer's dream of becoming a famous rapper. 65. The XYIRE continued to rant about Stoney and his fame for several minutes, so interviewer transitioned into asking about his trip to Alabama with Jones. Interviewer: "Where did you and Chris sleep?" Zaire: "There were 2 beds in the room, and I slept on the one closer to the wall." Interviewer: "Do you know how long you stayed there?" Zaire: "Probably 3 days." Interviewer: "What made you scared when you were there?" Zaire: "It was Mark Stoney. It was the face he made, the military face. I was scared to walk by him. He scared me." Interviewer: "Did anything like that happen any other times where Jones tried to touch it?" Zaire: 66. Zaire shut down any assertion Jones did anything inappropriate at Doll. Zaire also denied sleeping in the same bed with Jones and said he slept in another bed along the wall. Jones explained they had slept in the same bed on the first night because Zaire was scared to sleep on the couch alone in another room, but then on the second and third nights, Zaire slept on the couch cushions which they laid along the wall. Throughout the interview, Zaire held to his story of a one-time touching incident at Boost Mobile. Stoney's bald-faced lies about Alabama were on full display. Moreover, Stoney's hope of being able
More emotionally charged language put into what's supposed to be a factual document.
to say a child was molested at Doll because Hovind allowed Jones to visit just imploded in his scary military face. The interview continued. Interviewer: "What did you think about that Stoney saying Jones molests kids?" Zaire: "I'm just glad he ain't do me like that." Interviewer: "You said he didn't do you like what?" Zaire: "Like molest me or anything." Interviewer: "Has anyone ever asked you to do something with your it part?" Zaire: "No." Interviewer: "Do you know of anyone else who has been molested?" Zaire: "Nah." 67. The interview concluded with a few more questions about the paper towel incident. Zaire then offered a new variant to the story. It occurred in the front of the Boost Mobile store. For the third time in less than 48 hours, the location of the paper towel incident changed. Interviewer: "Tell me exactly where you were when that happened." XY at Ray: "In the front of the store, he did it. Like when you walk and you can see it. Like if you just walk straight and you can see it." Interviewer: How were your clothes when it happened? Zygeyer, he had pulled them down, his pants was up. Interviewer, what made him stop? Zygeyer, I don't know, he heard like a car door shut. 68. Day 370. On that same day, Stoney solidified his influence over Zygeyer and his family with a $10,000 GoFundMe. The textual portion of his post did two things: slandered Jones and Hovind, and dangled the dream of being a famous rapper in front of Zygeyer in the hopes he would bend to Stoney's agenda. 69. Stoney began the GoFundMe post by slandering Jones as having sexually groomed Zygeyer for years. I am organizing this fundraiser for the family of this young man who was groomed for years by Christopher L. Jones. Stoney's post is obviously a defamatory lie based upon XY Al Iyer's answers in the police interview. Stoney wrongly wrote that Zygeyer was age 11, as opposed to 12, and then reinforced his false narrative they stayed 5 days at Dahl, as opposed to less than 72 hours, in order to further persuade XY at Iyer there was a day he doesn't remember. At age Jones traveled with Zygeyer across state lines to stay overnight for 5 days in an empty house. 70. Stoney then slandered Hovind by labeling him a sovereign citizen and tax evader who enables degenerates. Kent Hovind, an infamous sovereign citizen tax evader and convicted felon who promotes, enables, and defends multiple degenerate associates. 71. Lastly, Stoney continued to manipulate Zygeyer by sharing his hope and dream of becoming a famous rapper. Stoney stroked XY Al Iyer's ego by claiming he has so much talent and potential, but lacked opportunity due to money. Zygeyer is now 14 years old and hopes to go to college, play sports, and one day become a rapper. He already has so much talent and potential for a promising future ahead of him, but has limited access to monetary support. This kid has potential. The fundraiser was worded to make Zygeyer believe he would receive a large sum of money so that he would feel indebted to Stoney and be more apt to say what Stoney wanted Hyam to say in recompense for his future fame and fortune.
Boy, that's such an incredible accusation being made inside of your legal complaint against somebody. You know, your legal complaint that is supposed to be factual. I just. Who okayed this? This is terrible.
72. Day 375. July 5, 2022. Stoney was interviewed via telephone by the FBI. The 2-page complaint form is entitled Allegations of Sexual Abuse of Minors in Repton, Al. In spite of Zygeyer alleging a single touching incident in South Carolina, Stoney knowingly provided false information to the FBI when he stated, Jones took a child, 12 years old, across state lines. To Dinaland in Repton, Al for 5 days in 2019 and molested the child. 73. The FBI complaint also contained a text Stoney sent to Special Agent Chris Kletthamer prior to the interview, wherein Stoney alleged the debunked accusation that Paul Hansen walked in on Chris and Zygeyer wrestling in their underwear, and that Chris tried to hide his erection. This was later shrugged off as gym, shorts, and morning wood. 74. Zygeyer has below-average intelligence, and he is easily manipulatable. Stoney seems to have picked up on this and believed he could persuade Zygeyer to eventually make this false allegation. Stoney still sought to criminally involve Hovind and Hansen. Regardless, it is a felony to knowingly provide false information to the FBI, 18 U.S. Code Section 1001, and Stoney broke the law in so doing.
Wow. So, in the middle of this, you're just gonna call Zaire stupid. What an asshole. Also ironic talking about giving false information to the FBI, Hovind, et al.
75. In early July 2022, Stoney plotted to end the charade by outright murdering Jones and Hovind. Stoney confided in his best friend Adam Lohr and Skylar Shannon. Via a recorded phone conversation, Lohr confessed that Stoney told him about his plan to murder Jones and Hovind, and that Lohr joined in on his plan. Lohr stated, Mark and I were about to get on a plane to kill motherfuckers. Shannon is the one who ultimately convinced Stoney not to commit first-degree murder by making him consider the ramifications to his daughter.
How can you declare it first-degree murder if that is a judgment that has to be done through a trial? It would have to be what the loadedness of the language. Like you're just declaring what things would be if they happened in its own particular kind of emotional appeal. This cannot be normal for any kind of criminal complaint. And this is the shit right here that's really gonna fuck this up because this is just so poorly written.
76. Day 384, July 14, 2022. Stoney interviewed XY at Iyer on his YouTube channel. The interview was again aimed at dragging Hovind and Hansen back into criminal culpability by pressuring Zayire to make an allegation at Dahl. The video was entitled, "Did Chris Jones drug a child at Dahl?" 77. Stoney had previously provoked Griffin and Zayire to make false allegations against Jones by seeding their texts with vile allegations the night before. Stoney implemented this strategy again when he spoke to Zayire the night before and planted the idea he may have been drugged at Dahl. Stoney, "That's what we were talking about last night with when I asked you if I had a question." Zayire, "Oh yeah. 78. Not just Stoney, but Shannon had also spoke with Zaya Tire quite a bit over the past several weeks. Especially since it's you specifically that I'm talking to. You've talked to me, we've talked, quite a bit and whatnot so." 79. In his conversation with Zayire, Shannon revealed their plan was to inundate Zayire with calls from Hovind-hating individuals, which Shannon referred to as the Mark Stoney crowd. They intended to influence Zayire to likewise hate Hovind, so he would be more susceptible to making a criminal accusation at Dahl. "Shannon, you gotta understand that I absolutely hate Kent Hovind in a completely different manner, okay? A very professional manner, okay? I'm kinda against Hovind. I'm very against Hovind on something kinda a lot of bit different than any of the stuff you're going to hear about, or any of the people you're gonna talk to, especially with the Mark Stoney crowd." 80. The audio was recorded while Stoney screen shared with Zayire in a private chat room. The chat group consisted of Stoney, Zayire, Shannon, and seemingly a representative of law enforcement. Stoney, "Like we were in a room together, which were in a chat room, and you were talking to me, Sklyer, and the sheriff." Exhibit 22L6, lady's voice in the background says, "Immediate response 81. Stoney's objective was to get Zayire to capitulate and say he believed he was drugged. Stoney, "I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, like cough syrup and lean stuff that we was talking about, because your mom told me that Chris called her to ask if he could give you some cough syrup." Zayire, "Oh, 82 note Zayire did not know what Stoney was talking about at first, and Zayire did not remember Jones calling his mother to ask if he could give him cough syrup." Stoney, I mentioned the cough syrup, and you didn't know what I was talking about at first." Stoney, "Do you remember when he called your mom?" Zayire, "No." 83. It is unknown whether Stoney was lying or whether Griffin made this statement out of anger during her interview, but it was edited out. This purported statement by Griffin has never been published. Zayire minimally engaged in their speculative conversation, and so Stoney nudged him by mentioning the money he would receive from the GoFundMe. Stoney included the fact Zayire was well aware of that, suggesting it was not the first time Stoney seduced Zayire with the allure of a large sum of GoFundMe money. Stoney, "But yeah, a lot of people are really passionate about what's going on. People are donating to GoFundMe. You're well aware of that." 84. Stoney continued with his passionate theme by stating, "We Stoney and Shannon, I have been much more passionate about this. Offline, off phone, off everything. Literally turning phones off." This was a subtle reference to their aborted plot to murder Jones and Hovind. Stoney thought he was clever to mention it and then laughed with amusement. Stoney, "Which everything Skylar just said is completely correct, and he's passionate about it, I am too. We've been much more passionate about this. Offline, off phone, off everything. Literally turning phones off so, for reasons we're not going to discuss here, but anyway." 85. About 10% minutes into the interview, Stoney and Zayire have a dialogue about what Zayire was given to drink before he went to bed. Zayire, "He gave me a drink. I don't even know what it was, but it was good." Stoney, it was lean. Zizire, now I know what lean looked like. Stoney, did it taste funny?
I just love that because it's exactly what I was expecting. It's like, nah, I know what lean's like. Oh man.
Like was it, did you open it? Did you break the seal? Did he hand it to you like in a cup, or like? Zizire, oh no, he gave me my own. I ain't finish it 'cause I end up like. Stoney, you didn't even finish it. 86. Stoney grew increasingly frustrated because Zygire would not allege he was drugged. Stoney resorted to blatantly telling XY at ire the authorities need his testimony. They need new information in order to charge Hovind, Jones, and Hansen in Alabama. Stoney, I guess it's a question that's gonna linger. I mean, if you can't remember, you can't remember what it was. I mean, I just want it to be on record. Because one of the things they're asking is for your testimony, your witness statement. And you know, the problem in Conecuh County is they're corrupt. You know, they're not going to move unless they got something that's like, all right, we have to do something. It's like if you don't have new information for us, we're not going to bother with it. And that's kind of been the wall we've been running into. 87. Stoney continued to relentlessly push Zygire to give a statement. Zygire finally succumbed to the pressure, made a brief statement, and then hung up. Stoney, yeah, just go ahead with what you think or what you remember in your own words. Zygire, really all I remember is dozing off. Then he woke me up to get in the bed, and I got in the bed and went straight to sleep. And I woke up feeling weird. Zygire, Jay in the morning like, I woke up and he said, come on, and we had to go to like where this little group was doing Bible study or whatever. And I woke up, and I had felt like my legs just gave up, and then like 15 minutes later diz when like my legs did come back. 88. Hansen attested that he never noticed any drug paraphernalia or cough syrup in the house. Hansen also stated he was the one who walked into the room every morning to awaken Jones and Zygire, and that Zygire never showed signs of impairment. Zygire woke up fully dressed except for his shoes, gave Hansen a big smile, and then arose like any kid on a camping trip. In the comment section of this video, Stoney gave two noteworthy replies. One, Stoney wrote that the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency were coordinating to build a case in this matter. Stoney had successfully duped these agencies to go after Hovind, Jones, and Hansen. Stoney further wrote, prison time is coming, and outright admitted his objective was to dry up Hovind's income and force him to close Dahl. 2. Stoney mocked Hovind and insinuated it is just a matter of time until Hovind went to prison. 89. In mid-July 2022, Stoney posted a graph on his Facebook page that showed his increased viewership. Stoney bragged that it was a result of his unconventional methods. Note, Stoney did not claim his increased viewership was the result brilliant detective work, nor did Stoney give glory to God for guiding his footsteps and opening doors.
Nor did he give glory to God in a criminal complaint. Oh my God. Hovind, you and your clowns. Let's keep on impressing.
Rather, Stoney basked in his own glory of implementing dark propaganda to destroy Hovind and Dahl. Stoney stated, people need to be aware of Kent Hovind and the crew at Dahl. Stop sending this huckster your money. 90. Day 392, July 22, 2022. Stoney posted a video on his YouTube channel entitled, Kent Hovind's Dirty Lit Secret: The Chris Jones Connection. The first half of the video was largely a rehash of previous videos, but in regards to Hovind saying that Zygire is fine, Stoney libeled Hovind with screen text saying, Kent Hovind is a liar. At the 21:40-minute mark, Stoney initiated a phone call to Helen Brinkman, a friend of Jones and a sex crimes prosecutor for 25 years. Brinkman was unaware she was being deceived and unaware she was being audio recorded for broadcast, an illegal wiretap in Washington state from where Stoney originated the call. Stoney was not satisfied by simply demonizing Jones in a public forum.
Hold up. Hold up. We're getting into Chris's territory now. Give me just a moment to look up something because let's see. Phone recording laws, Washington. Okay, Washington is an all-party, i.e., two-party consent state. Tennessee is a one-party, which means as long as one of the parties talking knows the call is being recorded, it is legal to record it. So I can record a phone call I'm having without the other party, regardless of where they are, necessarily knowing. Two-party state, both parties need to know, and that specifically, I mean, both cases prevent a third party from wiretapping, and that's what it's ostensibly for. But a two-party state, everyone does need to know it's being recorded. So this is interesting. Dang it, I hit space.
and pushing for false criminal prosecution. Stoney herein reached out to Jones, inner circle, and destroyed relationships as a publicity stunt. Stoney initially relayed to Brinkman the same slanderous story about Jones and Zygeyer resting in bed together in their underwear. The same allegation Hansen repeatedly told Stoney was untrue, and the same allegation Zygeyer confirmed was untrue. Stoney. In 2019, Chris came to visit Doll, Dinosaur Adventure Land, with an 11-year-old boy, and they were caught in bed together, wrestling around in their underwear. Brinkman, seriously. Stoney, yeah, Brinkman, yeah, wow. Stoney, and he was, and I've talked. I found the kid. I had looked for him for 3 years because they were really trying to hide the kid. They didn't want him coming forward. Exhibit 22 and 391. Note Stoney told the FBI that Zygeyer was 12 years old and he had searched for 1 year. But Stoney posted on GoFundMe and told Brinkman that Zygeyer was 11 years old and he had searched for 3 years. This clearly demonstrates that Stoney was intentionally deceitful for maximum effect. With two deliberately different stories, Stoney cannot claim he did this in good faith. 92. Stoney and Brinkman discussed Jones' California conviction, but then Stoney further defamed Jones by telling Brinkman that he had drugged Zygeyer in Alabama. Brinkman. But that doesn't matter if you found him in bed with an 11-year-old boy. Stoney, yeah, Brinkman. Wow, Stoney. And I've talked to Zygeyer is his name, and the way he describes it, it sounds like he was drugged. Brinkman. Oh no, Stoney. He said that Chris had a drink and he offered it to Zygeyer and Zygeyer took a sip and he said he liked it, and Chris said he could have it, and then he didn't even finish the drink before he passed out. Brinkman. Wow. 93. Jones said that he and Zygeyer purchased snacks and multiple 32 Oz bottles of various flavored Powerade on their way to Alabama. That night, Zygeyer drank a blue one and Jones drank a red one. Neither of them finished the large bottles before going to bed, but they finished them the next day and then drank fresh ones. Note the difference between what Zygeyer actually said and what Stoney told Brinkman that Zygeyer said. Plus Zygeyer. He gave me my own bottle. I ain't finish it 'cause I end up like going to sleep. Stoney. He didn't even finish the drink before he passed out. 94. Brinkman informed Stoney that Jones was recently shot, which Stoney knew but replied with another subtle reference toward his former plot to murder Jones and Hovind. Brinkman. The other thing you should know then is that he did confide in me that he has been shot at. He was shot recently. Stoney. Yeah, I've heard about that. Brinkman. Okay, you know that. Stoney. I didn't have anything to do with that. 95. Note how Stoney laughed in the same manner he did when he mentioned turning his phone off while plotting to murder Jones and Hovind.
I mean, we can't really note because this is pure text, but I'm going to presume links or downloads of the videos have been submitted as evidence in this, based on the couple of evidence citations we're seeing. Um, I mean, sometimes people find stuff funny. That is just how it works. That's not an immediate sign of guilt or of having anything to do with anything. At the same rate, who knows? Obviously, Stoney does. But I mean, that's as far as it goes. This is something that would have to be looked into. You can't just claim, based on the fact he left, that Mark Stoney totally tried to have Chris Jones killed by having him shot. You can't just say that, Kent, especially inside of this kind of complaint. You have opened up multiple independent investigations into all of this before what you want to be looked into can even happen. You have probably shot yourself in your own foot, Hovind. Jones, etc.
Stoney doesn't laugh much, but he seems to get a twisted sense of pleasure when he subtly references his murder plot, evidenced by his immediate laughter after the fact. 96. While on the topic of murder, Stoney told Brinkman an unpublished conversation he had with XY Al Ayer's family wherein they wanted Jones' address so they could murder him. Stoney: well, it's been a month since I was able to find the kid and his family. And probably a week after that, they were just so mad because Zygeyer had finally started coming out with the things that had happened between him and Chris, and they were ready to go for blood, and I had to talk them down. Actually, I had my friend F. Shanoni talk the stepfather down while I was calling the sheriff to say, hey, you better watch out 'cause these quivs are coming. And fortunately, the situation was diffused, and in cooler heads prevailed and nobody did anything stupid. 97. Besides the murder allegation, Stoney's above statement was highly slanderous. Zygeyer told investigators it was a one-time incident and that Jones never touched him again. Interviewer: did anything like that happen any other times where he tried to touch it? Zygeyer: a tuhl, but Stoney falsely informed Brinkman and listeners that XY Al Ayer had finally started coming out with the things that had happened between him and Chris. It was a grossly inflammatory statement that implied Jones had repeatedly engaged in depraved sexual acts with Zygeyer that resulted in his family wanting Jones to be dead.
Like to note, Sitkittle adding in the info, I have both listened to and talked to Mark, and he does laugh a lot, so there you go, it's in his nature.
This provides another glimpse into Stoney's behind-the-scenes manipulation. The official story is that Jones grabbed XY Al Irf's penis with a paper towel 5 years prior to Stoney making contact with the family, and that the family had been aware of the incident for 3 years, since November 2019. The family had never contacted the police, but after talking with Stoney, they were not only ready to contact the police, but also ready to kill Jones. Stoney was clearly stirring the pot and triggering this poor family in ways that have yet to be revealed. Lore: there's a lot more to this.
So Stoney, according to the story, basically letting these people know they're justified to be angry about this and that it shouldn't be just ignored, while simultaneously trying to somewhat control their dignified rage, is bad. But Jones having touched the kid to begin with, regardless of the context, everyone involved acknowledging that an event happened and nothing coming of it, that's totally fine. What the fuck?
That you guys don't know. Like, it's not like everything was on a fucking YouTube video. 98. It also begs the question, what was Stoney's motive for publicly revealing the family's desire to murder Jones? Stoney took extraordinary precautions to protect himself when he plotted to murder Jones and Hovind, but then he ratted out XY Al Ayer's family.
Note again, stating something that there was a plot to do this stuff as if it's an abject fact. The plaintiffs are literally doing the accusatory thing they claim the defendant has done in their criminal complaint against him. Incredible.
Even Lore found this perplexing. One rational explanation is that Stoney sought to secretly murder Jones without the aid or knowledge of Lore and Shannon. Stoney ousted XY Al Ayer's stepdad, Williams, so that he could personally murder Jones, but Williams would go to prison. This would negate the ramifications to his daughter that Shannon mentioned. Stoney recorded all of these conversations, so the audio of Williams' death threat is in Stoney's possession. 99. It is noteworthy that Stoney knew Jones had been shot, and he knew other vigilantes who heard his podcasts would also want Jones dead. And yet within this video, Stoney twice posted Jones' home address on screen and twice verbally stated Jones' home address.
As if that's not something Hovind has done, which in no way makes this stuff right, but once again, pot meat kettle.
Stoney taunted the public with highly slanderous disinformation about Jones, and then made sure anyone who was watching, including XY Al Ayer's family, knew exactly where to find him. Stoney was blatantly inciting violence against Jones. As the interview continued, Stoney regurgitated the false accusation that Hovind had been complicit with Jones in committing the crime of criminal conspiracy in Alabama. Stoney: well, in Alabama, Hovind would actually, he's actually committed a Class C misdemeanor, criminal conspiracy, because Kent is the one that set them up in an empty house just off the property, I guess for plausible deniability. But, they've just been trying to cover that up ever since. 100. Stoney again defamed Hovind with the false criminal accusation he had been grooming his 6-year-old daughter Mackenzie, and had been getting Stoney's daughter to give him massages. Stoney,
Yep, we're going even deeper down the rabbit hole.
let me ask your opinion on this because,
And good point, yeah, registered sex offenders' addresses would already be public record. Very good point.
I would send my daughter with Kent Hovind's wife, and she was doing home.
Oh, Sootkittle bringing up that Laura was under medication when Bolin interviewed. I'm referring to Stephen Bolin. That's where this comes from. Stephen Bolin's Proverbs guy, yeah. And later recanted it all.
Schooling with my daughter at their house, and Kent would come to the house after he was done doing tour or whatever he was doing out on the property, and he would have someone give him a massage. Well, I came to find out about a year after the fact that he had been getting my doctor to give him massages, and these are like shirtless, only in swimming
That shouldn't be doctor and massages, it's daughter and massages, just for those listening.
trunks, kind of massages. The way I found out was I had an injury that had been bothering me, and I was complaining about being sore, and my daughter said, "I can give you a massage. I'm the best massager in the world." And I was like, "What do you mean you're the best massager in the world? I've never even talked to you about this kind of stuff." And she says, "Well, Kent Hovind told me when I would give him back massages." Brinkman, "Oh boy, Stoney. Yeah, 111C, that is Q-rooming." 101. Stoney intentionally relayed the false impression to Brinkman and listeners that Hovind had been alone with Stoney's daughter and that Hovind solicited her to give him sensual massages. Stoney conveniently left out the fact Hovind's wife Lincoln was present, and there was another lady giving.
Oh, so now you acknowledge Lincoln as Hovind's wife. All these sections later. Wife at the time, of course, but you didn't acknowledge it was ex-wife earlier.
Hovind a massage when Mackenzie innocently joined in. In the comment section, Stoney admitted forming/shaping, manipulating the narrative in the course of slandering Jones and Hovind when he revealed the feds have been building their own case. This is the court of public opinion. Unlike the feds who are supposed to derive facts, Stoney was defaming Jones and Hovind in order to win the public's favor and thereby destroy Hovind's ministry. Also in the comment section, at Bonnie PC 1959, asked Stoney about his illegal wiretap of Brinkman and others. Stoney admitted to repeatedly breaking the law, but thought it was inconsequential because nobody, except the guilty, should complain.
Should complaint. I don't think that's grammatically correct. It would create a problem of any evidence gotten through that recording means being invalid and inadmissible in court. Um, and then Stoney would have his own problems with the technically wiretap charge. But still, like that's way deep in the weeds for something that is obviously a much broader problem.
102. Day 417. August 16, 2022. The Aiken County Sheriff Department deemed the paper towel incident at Boost Mobile unfounded and closed the case.
Okay, so there was an investigation into that, unfounded, and the case was closed. All right then. It is what it is in the legal record.
103. Stoney continued to nurture his relationship with Zygeyer in the hopes of eventually being able to persuade him to say something sinister happened at Dahl. 104. Stoney also befriended XY Al Iyer's younger twin siblings, Josiah and Moria. Stoney filled their young minds with tales of Jones, Hovind, and Hansen kidnapping, rapping, and murdering kids at Dahl. 105. A few weeks later, Josiah and Moria were ready to make their own allegations against Jones. Instead of telling their mother, Stoney instructed Josiah and Mo RT Ya to keep their allegations secret. Stoney likewise kept their allegations secret and never informed Griffin that Josiah and Moria disclosed they had been molested. Instead, Stoney took Josiah's and Moria's new accusations straight to the FBI 106. In September 2022, Stoney again contacted the FBI. For the second time, Stoney knowingly made false statements to the FBI by informing them that Jones molested Josiah and Moria. The FBI made arrangements for Zygeyer, Josiah, and Moria to be interviewed. 107. Day 448, September 16, 2022, Zygeyer was brought in to be interviewed by a representative of the FBI. Questions entailed allegations in South Carolina and Alabama. First, the interviewer inquired about the paper towel incident at Boost Mobile. Zygeyer: I think he kept asking. I kept on telling him no, and then he pulled down my pants and just did it with a napkin. Interviewer: So you kept telling him no, but he pulled your pants down anyway. Zygeyer: Uh-huh. Interviewer: How many times did he ask? Zygeyer: A Jew times. Interviewer: Then he pulls your underwear down too. Very next thing he does. Zygeyer: He gets the napkin and just grabbed it. Yeah, he gets like 2 napkins and holds them together and just grabbed it. Interviewer: How did he grab it? Zygeyer: Like he had laid it down on his hand or something. I don't know how he did it. I wasn't really.
Why are they still going through this if the case had already been found, it had been deemed unfounded, the claims? I don't get why this is being discussed in this depth again, be it, in the original context or in this complaint. I guess just to try to reiterate false claims being made, but this is between the interviewer and Zaire, this unnamed interviewer.
Paying attention. Interviewer: Tell me what his hand did when he grabbed it. Zygeyer: That's it. Interviewer: Was his hand moving or staying still? XY alt ray: It was staying still. Interviewer: And so, he's touching it with his hand, and what happens next? Zygeyer: That's it. He just act like everything was normal. Interviewer: How did that end? XY alt ray: Oh, he had pulled back up my pants. 108. The paper towel incident was rebranded as the double napkin incident. Zygeyer alleged Jones forcibly pulled down his pants, grabbed his penis with 2 napkins and held it without moving, and then pulled his pants back up. There was no other attempt in the remaining years he knew Jones. It is worth noting Zygeyer gave lengthy answers about conversations with Stoney, lengthy answers about the landlord, who he alleges molested him at knife point, and lengthy answers about having sex with his sister. But when asked about Jones, his answers were always short, succinct, and lacking detail.
Um, wow, you just brought up a lot of stuff that is not mentioned anywhere else, and you're just stating it like it's common knowledge. What the fuck? What the fuck? And what the fuck? Do you have recordings of these interviews and these discussions about incest and other things which occurred? Because that's what you're claiming exist, and that you're able to compare these things. What the fuck is this document? Oh my god.
109. Next, the interviewer inquired about Alabama. When Zygeyer was asked about wrestling with Jones in their underwear, Zygeyer laughed and asked how the interviewer heard about it. The interviewer pressed on with the questioning. Interviewer: Was anybody in their underwear during the wrestling? Zygeyer: Ta. Interviewer: Where were Chris' clothes when you were wrestling? Zygeyer: They were on. I don't know what they Stoney and others talking about. 110. This is XY Al Ayer's first comment about the allegation on the record. XY Al Ayer's laughter when the topic was broached suggests he was aware of the allegation. Of course, Zygeyer was aware of it. Stoney broached the topic. The problem was that Zygeyer denied it. Stoney's remedy was to edit out XY Al Ayer's denial and not address the incident until Zygeyer was ready to make the allegation. In the meantime, Stoney perpetually pushed this false narrative to the public and to law enforcement in anticipation of that day. Then the interviewer inquired about Stoney's allegation that Jones had an erection. Interviewer: Ever a time where you saw him without clothes? Zygeyer: Ta. Interviewer: Ever a time when you saw down there on Chris? XY Al Ayer: Interviewer, ever a time where you could see it like through his clothes or anything like that? Zygyre, 111. Zygyre.
I just want to note that this seemed the seems to be or that kind of no variant of saying. Bit of a t sound in there getting transcribed this way by whomever did this stuff. It is what it is. It obviously shows a lack of a cultural understanding of the nuances of how it would be said. And of course, the text to speech does a terrible job on it.
Zygyre denied ever seeing Jones with an erection. Jones, Hansen, and XY Al Iyer all share the same version of events, and all of them agree Jones did not sleep in his underwear. Jones and Zygyre did not wrestle in their underwear, and Jones did not have an erection. 112. It is clearly Stoney who had been untruthful. This is indisputable proof that Stoney fabricated this defamatory story simply because his fragile feelings were hurt when Jones was allowed to visit Dahl in 2021 over his objection. Interviewer, how do you feel about Mark Stoney? XY Allray, I look at him as a big brother. 113. Imagine that. The same man who was pushing for Jones, Hovind, and Hansen to be prosecuted is the same man who was working his way into said victims' family to exude unduly influence over them. It was criminal witness tampering at its finest. 114. Day 455, September 23, 2022. Josiah and Moria were brought in to be interviewed by a representative of the FBI. 115. Josiah imitated Zygyre in alleging he and Jones were watching television when Jones inappropriately touched him. Josiah said he immediately ran and told his mother, Griffin, who then banned Jones from returning to their house. Josiah stated, "Chris is our archenemy," a statement that had Stoney's fingerprints all over it. The problem with Josiah's story was that Griffin would have previously disclosed this to Stoney if it were true. 116. Moria imitated Zygyre in alleging she spent the night in the same.
It's funny that the further this goes on, the more any claims of credibility and the structure of it break down. That is to say, it becomes slightly more laden with just random accusations from Hovind's side.
Same bed as Jones at his house in Aiken, whereupon she woke up to find Jones touching her. The problem with Moria's story was that she had never spent the night at Jones' house. 117.
Never spent the night at Jones' house.
After the interview, the investigator notified Griffin of Josiah's and Moria's allegations against Jones. Although Griffin had been persuaded by Stoney that Zygyre may have been molested, she immediately.
And yes, bottom line, a convicted sex offender brought a minor across state lines and slept in the same bed with said minor, and Kent did nothing to stop it.
Knew Josiah and Moria were lying. Griffin informed the investigator of this fact. 118. This explains why Stoney instructed the children to conceal their allegations from their mother. Had Griffin known beforehand, she would not have allowed Josiah and Moria to lie to the investigator. Whereas now, Stoney had successfully involved the FBI. 119. With multiple investigations going on, the FBI refused to accept they had been duped by Stoney and his cohorts. The FBI chose to believe the siblings' accounts over their mother. In October 2022, FBI agent Farah Rajabi forwarded the allegations to the Aiken Sheriff Department. The Aiken Sheriff Department opened a new case. 2023, 120. Several months passed with no movement in the case, but South Carolina was a sideshow from Stoney's perspective. If Jones were convicted in South Carolina, it would not destroy Hovind's ministry. Stoney needed Jones to be convicted of molesting Zygyre at Dahl. 121. Stoney again contacted Griffin and persuaded her, and possibly Zygyre, to change the location of the paper towel incident back to Dahl. Stoney then sought to bring attention to the matter in a national publication. Stoney contacted news correspondent Kelly Weil at the Daily Beast. Stoney enticed Weil with his scandalous story of a creationist preacher who allowed his sex offender friend to bring a child to Dahl, where he proceeded to molest him. 122. Day 588, February 3, 2023. The Daily Beast published an article entitled, Preacher Accused of Enabling Pedophile at Creationist Dino Theme Park. Within the article,
I love that it read Dino with the cynicism it needed to be.
Zaire was alleged to have been molested by Jones at the park. Among their concerns are repeated visits to Dahl by Hovind's sex offender friend, who allegedly molested a child at the park. 123. Stoney relayed this libelous story to Weil even after hearing Zaire say, "It's not at Dino Land, it's somewhere else." And after hearing Griffin say, he said, "Oh yeah, it wasn't at Dino Land, but it was somewhere else." Stoney cannot say it was a misunderstanding because he personally told Sandra it may not have happened at Dinosaur Adventure Land or at that house, but that was just a step in the grooming process. 124. In deceiving Weil, Stoney seemingly shared only a portion of his interview with Griffin, wherein she alleged the paper towel incident occurred at Dahl. But he withheld the portion wherein she and Zaire changed the location to the back room of a Boost Mobile store. In a Facebook Messenger call that Stoney shared to YouTube in June, the boy's mother claimed that Jones touched her son's genitals through a paper towel during the Dahl trip. 125. Before publication, Weil wrote that she reached out to Griffin for comment, and Griffin affirmed the paper towel incident occurred at Dahl. Griffin seems to have been on board with Stoney's fictitious molestation at Dahl's story. Griffin creatively added that Zaire looked pale and scared when he revealed it to her 5 days after he returned home. Note there is no mention of Boost Mobile or the pending charge in South Carolina within the article. Stoney and Griffin apparently thought the case in South Carolina was going nowhere, and so they pretended it didn't exist. 126. Day 592, February 9, 2023. Jones met with Detective Casso of the Aiken County Sheriff Department in reference to XY Ad Ire and Boost Mobile. Jones explained the whole internet vigilante thing behind the scenes. Jones told Casso that she needed to watch all of Stoney's videos in order to grasp the bigger picture. Casso replied, "I don't have time for that." 127. Day 642, March 29, 2023. Detective Casso arrested Jones and charged him with 1 count of criminal sexual conduct with a minor, 3 degree, section 163655, for allegedly touching XY Al Iyer's penis with a paper towel double napkin at...
So, wait. Investigation stopped on the paper towel incident, yet now there was an arrest made? Okay. I mean, I think we were talking FBI earlier, and now we're talking more local. Still.
Boost Mobile. Jones faced 10 years in prison if convicted. Bond was set at $15,000. Jones posted bond, but the deputy made Jones spend the night in jail before he processed the paperwork.
It is absolutely fucking mental that scumbags are able to post bond like that. Because even at a 10%, that's 1.5K, so.
128. As a condition of bond, Jones was forbidden from leaving South Carolina and was strapped with an ankle monitor. Jones was required to pay $60 per week for the monitoring service. As a result of travel restrictions, Jones was unable to continue earning money by donating plasma twice a week in Augusta, GA, $500 month. Unable to attend weekly Bible study in Augusta, GA. Unable to take a...
Wow, I think he'll live without his weekly Bible study. There's a thing called the internet. You can do it through that, buddy.
planned trip to Israel in May of 2023. Unable to attend holidays in Texas or California. Unable to attend family functions in Charlotte, NC. And unable to attend the funeral of a friend in April of 2024. 129.
You know, if you negotiate, I think you can get very specialty exceptions for things like funerals. Rest of that shit, fuck it. Cry me a river, bitch.
9. Day 646, April 2, 2023. Jones' arrest and mugshot were printed in the Aiken Standard. The article caused Jones tremendous shame and embarrassment. The article is still online.
As it should, because he's a scumbag. He's a child molester. He should feel bad. That's the first thing he should be feeling. Then we can move on to all the other ways he should feel, things he should do to make up for this, which he can never truly. But, of course, coming from Hovind's point of view, where he did nothing wrong, he shouldn't be feeling bad and being made a pariah like this.
To this day for potential employers and everyone to find. 130. Stoney and others.
You know, you don't want a criminal record that stops you from being able to get jobs. You don't want to sit there and be on public sex offender registry lists. You don't want to not be able to get a job. Maybe don't do shit that's going to put you on sex offender registry lists, get you criminal convictions, and keep you from being able to get jobs. Maybe you should try that. Okay? Okay.
Posted celebratory videos about Jones' arrest. 131. Day 661. April 17, 2023. The Daily Beast published a follow-up article entitled Creationist Theme Park Pal Charged with Child Sex Abuse, again by Kelly Weil. The mugshot of Jones was published on a national level. This article again contained the libelous claim that Jones sexually abused the boy at Doll. Dinosaur Adventure Land, a creationist theme park where Jones is friends with head preacher Kent Hovind, and where Jones has been accused of sexually abusing a boy.
That is an accurate statement. Where he has been accused. Note the word accused. They didn't say that it did happen. It's saying that the claim is being made that it happened there. That is a completely factual thing to say in a publication, in a news piece. Accused is the key word. Accused slash allegedly are the words to use in that context.
132. Weil again reached out to Griffin for comment, and she confirmed the arrest was related to her son, but Griffin did not reveal it was for an identical incident at a different location. Reached for comment, the boy's mother told the Daily Beast that Jones' arrest in South Carolina last month was related to her son. The arrest warrant does not appear to relate directly to Doll, which is located in Alabama, but to an incident approximately 2 years before the Doll visit, when the boy was 9. 133. In April of 2023, Stoney called Hovind and feigned a private conversation between the two of them, but Stoney went on to post the audio to his YouTube channel under the title, An Overdue Conversation with Kent Hovind, another illegal wiretap from Washington state. The link to this video was lost when Stoney deleted all of his incriminating videos, but a screenshot of the comment section was taken before the video was scrubbed. 134. In response to a question about Jones' arrest not being related to Doll, Stoney cryptically wrote, "I'm on him. Don't worry. This is far from over." It is unclear whether Stoney was referring to Jones or Hovind, but either way Stoney was clear in relaying his intention to continue tampering with a criminal case behind the scene. 135. Numerous other YouTube channels wrongly published videos about Jones being arrested for molesting a child at Doll. These channels ran with Stoney's slander and unwittingly served as an extension of Stoney's smear campaign. Numerous videos are still online and continue to slander Jones and Hovind to this day.
I gotta interrupt the craziness for super chat from our friend Tyler West, aka Pluto Pilot, one of the people in the crew regularly calling Hovind's crazy ass call-in show and actually, bothering to argue with the man, knowing full well he's gonna get muted by Hovind all the time, or not Hovind, by Joseph, once he starts making a good point, which takes precisely a third of a second. Whereas Hovind needs 5 hours to ramble on about nothing. Super Chat says, Merry Christmas, thank you very much. You'll have to cover Mark's counter lawsuit since Ken has opened himself up to one. I most definitely will. This is going to be some juicy stuff.
136. In May of 2023, elders at the church where Hansen attended in Galveston, Texas, were made aware of Stoney's online accusations about Jones. Hansen was excommunicated from the church merely for his association with Jones.
Wow. Cry me a river. Don't care. You can find another church. They're not exactly uncommon.
137. Day 871, November 13, 2023. Jones received a letter from the DOJ in response to a FOIA request informing him that the FBI had located 514 pages and 16 CDs of audio in his file, all of which had been added since January 2021. All of this defamatory disinformation was instigated by Stoney and will plague Jones' federal file for the rest of his life. 130.
You're not looking at the fact that this man has a federal file. That the fact that he has one is probably a bigger issue. Hovind and his ilk go around with serious, crimes against the United States in and of itself and act like that's just normal. Everyone's got a file. Nah, I don't. I ain't got a federal file. I don't. It's not normal to have such, Kent.
38. Day 898, December 10, 2023. A video entitled Kent Hovind and Sindel Lincoln Molested a 6-Year-Old Girl was posted by Theo at the Lies of the Devil YouTube channel. The video consisted of commentary on one of Stoney's deleted videos, wherein Stoney claimed Hovind had been getting my daughter to give him massages. Stoney's daughter was in the care of Hovind's wife Uncaln, so she was implicated by default. Even though Lincoln and Stoney were allies, Lincoln wrote a scathing rebuke about Stoney's daughter giving Hovind massages as well as Hovind received massages in his underwear. The truth of the matter is that Stoney's daughter Mackenzie, Maisie, was not alone with Hovind, but other women were in the process of massaging Hovind when Maisie simply wanted to join the other girls, Julie, Yulia, and Joanna. Lincoln further wrote that she was right there, 10 away in the kitchen, listening to them all talking girl stuff, while a disinterested Kent Hovind slept or worked on his phone. Lincoln
Hovind working on his phone. Yeah, right.
also wrote, "No one was in their underwear. That's a complete lie. Kent always wore his red swim trunks."
Oh, yes, because red swim trunks and underwear are totally not the same thing when it comes to the layering of clothing. It's just totally how it works.
139. Lincoln continued, "There was one other incident that I'm aware of where I was making Maisie's lunch in the kitchen 10 away, and she did some short massage on Kent's feet or hands. Kent was half asleep, and there was again nothing sexual whatsoever, or I certainly would not remain silent." 140. Thereafter, Stoney replied to Theo with a comment of his own, wherein he defended Lincoln and admitted his daughter had never been alone with Hovind nor had she given him a massage. Stoney did not accept responsibility for his slanderous allegations, which he spewed to Brinkman and others, but rather he deflected blame to a lady named Johanna.
And if that's how the chain of, I want to call it a chain of custody, the statements, the chain of statements comes, then that's how it goes. Stoney's not responsible to the degree you think he is for secondhand information like that and has acknowledged that it was apparently incorrect. That's all you can hope for in this, Hovind.
Crucially, it's important to understand that my daughter, Mackenzie, has never indicated any suggestion or confession related to the allegations made by Johanna. This information comes not only from my conversations with her, but also from the team of therapists who worked with her over a 6-month period. They confirmed that nothing beyond uncomfortable situations occurred during the times Mackenzie was present during the massages, which involved other women, including Julie, Yulia, and Andy. Importantly, there was never a situation where Mackenzie, Johanna, and Kent were alone, or with only one other person when these alleged incidents supposedly took place, J141. Stoney continued to make disparaging comments through December 10, 2023. Every criminal
Y'all, we're almost done.
accusation Stoney alleged at Dahl has been proven false. 1. Hovind did not receive massages in his underwear. 2. Hovind was not alone with Mackenzie. 3. Hovind did not entice Mackenzie to give him massages. 4. Hovind and Jones did not conspire to break the law when Jones visited Dahl. 5. Jones did not break the law when he slept under the same roof with XY Al Iyer. 6. Jones did not sleep with Zygeyer in his underwear 7 Jones, and Zygeyer did not wrestle together in their underwear 8. Jones did not have an erection 9.
Jones did not have an erection 9. Oh. Oh, thank you, text to speech. You did such a good job at being terrible.
Hansen did not lie to cover up crimes in Alabama 2024 142.
And you all see why I had AI do this. Got the text formatted it as best I could, took out some of the extraneous stuff, and got it going. Because there's no way I could have read all this in one setting.
Numerous families who visited Dahl informed Hovind about employees at Bobby's Marathon Gas in Castleberry, Alabama, sharing Stoney's slanderous rumors about Dahl with their patrons. 143. Day 1095, June 24, 2024. In response to the gossip, Hovind reached out to the owner, Bobby Ray Edgar, via letter in an attempt to stop the vile rumors. Hovind letter reads in part, "Several of your employees freely slander our ministry to total strangers and say things like, 'Oh, you don't want to go there. That's a bad place. I've heard bad things about that place.'" Hovind continues, "Since you've had many employees over the years, I'm sure you understand that occasionally a few employees get disgruntled over something and leave your employ and spread bad things about you or your business. Over the last 8 years, a few have left, or been made to leave for various reasons, and now they seem determined to ruin our reputation by spreading crazy lies about us. Hovind requests that the owner require that they stop making any disparaging remarks about us while being paid by you." 100.
Could you please get your employees to stop talking bad about us? We know you're a fuel station and people come looking for advice and everyone's free to give their opinions, but please don't talk bad about us, okay?
144. Day 11/12, July 11, 2024.
Uh, Chris, Rick Talk, how's this stuff about gossip at the gas station relevant? I am not a lawyer. Um, it is, I keep hearing Kent Hobbit. um, it is because this shows it's supposed to say the extent that Stoney's lies got around, as opposed to, as I mentioned earlier, just people in the area talking as people tend to do, especially in small communities or areas that are throughways.
Jones was charged with a second count of criminal sexual conduct with a minor, section 163655. The charge pertained to XY Al Ayer's sister, Moria, even though Griffin told authorities Moria was being untruthful. The charges were not conjoined, and so it would require a second trial. If convicted on both counts, Jones faced life in prison. 145. Day 11/24, July 23, 2024. Jones' trial related to Zygeyer commenced in Aiken, South Carolina. Hovind and his wife, Sandra, attended the first day. Hovind sat behind the defense, while Sandra sat behind the prosecution. An FBI agent took the witness stand and testified against Jones. Zygeyer took the witness stand and impeached himself. Griffin took the witness stand and testified favorably for Jones. Jones was taken into custody and spent the night in jail before returning to the courthouse the next morning.
Okay.
146. Day 11/25, July 24, 2024. A jury of 12 unanimously found Jones to be not guilty. The second trial pertaining to Mo Artia still loomed over Jones' head for the next year.
Mo Artia. Never change, text to speech. Never change.
2025 147. Day 1516. On August 19, 2025, the solicitor dropped the second case against Jones.
For what it's worth, I have looked in this. I should have said this at the beginning and just made sure I wasn't mentioned somewhere. I was not. Because now we're in the time frame where I've been following the Hovinses.
All of the criminal investigations and legal proceedings are over. All of the investigations have ended. Neither Jones nor Hovind nor Hansen will be going to prison. But 4 years after Stoney started his vengeful cyber attack, the consequences of his actions leave a trail of tarnished reputations, financial loss, broken relationships, fear of vigilante justice, and mental anguish in its wake. Cause of action count 1. Defamation 148. Herein, plaintiffs repeat and reallege all preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth 149. Defendant Stoney, directly, indirectly, and through the use of various mediums, designed, disseminated, and encouraged the false and defamatory statements detailed herein. The false information contained knowing misstatements of facts which were deceptively juxtaposed with actual malice to cause harm to the plaintiffs. 150. Defendant Stoney, with actual malice and with knowledge that his statements were false, controlled the defamatory attacks and deceptively juxtaposed and misstated the facts as to intentionally destroy the reputations of the plaintiffs and to deter people from visiting Dahl. 151. Defendant Stoney personally engaged in defamation and all types of media to include YouTube, social media, and various media outlets. 152. Because defendant Stoney's accusations of sexual misconduct against plaintiffs are actionable per se, damages are presumed. 153. As a proximate result of the intentional and reckless acts of the defendant in defaming the plaintiffs have suffered disgrace, shame, ridicule, and contempt. Their personal and professional reputations were damaged, and they suffered economic loss. Cause of action count 2. Defamation by implication 154. Herein, plaintiffs repeat and reallege all preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth 155. Defendant Stoney funded, published, facilitated, and directed the publication of false and defamatory statements about the plaintiffs in the statements described herein, with intentional or reckless disregard as to their veracity. Defendant Stoney knew, or should have known, that his statements were false, as the facts directly refuted his statements. Defendant Stoney intended to create a false implication and defamatory implication by deceptively juxtaposing various quotes. 156. Defendant Stoney had direct knowledge of the wrongfulness of his actions because information was available to him to contradict his statements. 157. As a proximate result of his intentional and reckless acts in defaming the plaintiffs, defendant Stoney is liable in damages. Cause of action count 3. Intentional inflict ton of emotional distress 158. Herein, plaintiffs repeat and reallege all preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth 159. Defendant Stoney intentionally produced, funded, and disseminated false and defamatory information to cause damage to the reputation and character of the plaintiffs. Those acts were done with the intent of causing extreme emotional distress and were a proximate cause of the damage suffered by the plaintiffs. Defendant Stoney's actions, which caused mental anguish and severe psychological and emotional distress to the plaintiffs, were outrageous and utterly intolerable in a civilized society.
I just want to note that if you were to go through the entire backlog of Hovind content that has been archived through this period and what survives on Rumble and such, coming on the more recent couple of years, yes, Hovind seems very distraught and very upset as he continues to whack atheists, go on tirades about everything and anything. Yep, seems really distraught, really, really stressed, really suffering and anguish. Totally.
160. Following. As a result of defendant Stoney's actions, the plaintiffs suffered that Dahl suffers from an irreversible tarnished reputation as a result of being deemed a pedophile ring, and a cult Dahl loss of donations Dahl reduction in visitors Dahl.
Yet he simultaneously talks about how busy it is at Dinosaur Adventureland. This is the really interesting stuff. I should probably do a small dedicated video just on this ending, because there's so much meat here. All the other stuff was just kind of filler. This is where the good stuff is. um, Tarnished reputation, you could kind of argue that, but you don't really make yourself look good, and you can't necessarily say that local community opinions are explicitly because of Stoney's comments. Loss of donations, You can't necessarily say that. You're not getting verified information on, I am not donating because such and such. Reduction in visitors. Again, you say it's busy there all the time, so which is it? Is it busy or it's not? Y'all needed to acquire full time security from Stoney and stuff. Y'all have had security. You need security for a lot of things. You talk more about other people bothering you than you do threats from Stoney. Hovind suffers from an irreversibly tarnished reputation. No, your reputation's been tarnished from the moment you went to jail for the tax evasion, let alone people knowing you're a scumbag. Outcast in his own community? No, that's again your own thing. All this local stuff you cannot say is explicitly due to Mark Stoney. When one, people likely didn't like you early on, even in 2018, 2019, 2020 range when Mark was still there. But additionally, after the fact, you can't necessarily say that that's explicitly because of him. You don't know his kind of reach. Do you have verification that every single person in Lenox, Alabama, and the surrounding area has specifically watched all of Mark Stoney's now non existent content? This is crazy.
Needed to acquire full-time security from Stoney and potential vigilantes. Hovind suffers from an irreversible tarnished reputation. Hovind is an outcast in his own community, Hovind fears reprisal from vigilantes who believe the rumors in the same manner as the Pizzagate shooting Hovind.
um, yeah, wasn't that some right wing conspiracy, Kent? You're gonna say you're scared of yeah.
Suffered strife within his marriage, some of which is caused by Stoney communicating with his wife and persuading her that Jones molested Zaire, a position she still believes in spite of Jones. Not guilty verdict, Jones.
Well, given that you're one to claim that prison's full of innocent men and vice versa, that guilty people go free all the time, Kent. Yeah, what do you expect? Also, she ain't your wife no more.
Spent four days in jail because of the Stoney instigated false charges, Jones, forced to endure the embarrassment and emotional duress.
You know, there would have never been a chance for anything to be claimed, which is how things work. An allegation is going to be levied based on one's understanding of the possibility of a crime having been committed, had Chris Jones never been there with a child.
Of trial. And he faced a 10-year prison sentence if found guilty. Jones suffered strife with family and loss of friends due to Stoney's allegations. Jones suffers financial distress resulting from court costs, as well as GPS monitoring. Jones was unable to leave the state of South Carolina 16 months due to being on bond. Jones was unable to go on a planned trip to Israel in May 2023, unable to earn money donating plasma in Augusta, Georgia, unable to attend family functions in North Carolina.
I mean, you couldn't find a place in South Carolina to donate plasma? It's a pretty big state. I think you could have found a place.
Unable to attend holidays in California and Texas, and unable to go to a friend's funeral in Augusta, Georgia, in April 2024.
As I said earlier, because it's the second time this has been brought up, you probably could have gotten some kind of exception for the funeral. The rest of the stuff, be a man and get the fuck over it, dude. Grow the fuck up. I couldn't go to Israel. I gotta support them murdering people for no good fucking reason. Because, genocide's cool when it's not against God's chosen people. But all them people, all them other desert people, them Arabs, we can get them, yeah. Chris Jones, May 2023 probably.
Jones, FBI file contains 514 pages of libel added by Stoney Jones. Ongoing efforts to overturn his California conviction was delayed. Jones still feels terrorized after being shot, and getting death threats. Jones worries Stoney.
It's really funny here that Hovind et al. Want to be like, Jones feels scared because he got shot. It's understandable. Getting shot ain't exactly cool. I've thankfully never been shot. I don't want to be shot. I'm pretty sure it fucking sucks. Um, and getting death threats and stuff. Kent, you may wonder why people don't want to give you all their fucking info because you're obsessed with trying to dox people. Maybe they don't want to have to deal with the same kind of shit simply because they call you out on your shit because you people are crazy and you do shit like that. Yeah.
May suffer another mental breakdown. And come kill him, Hansen suffers from an irreversible tarnished
Ah, and there's the accusation that Stoney is mentally unwell. They didn't bring it up in here, but of course, Kent loves to bring up this completely false narrative that Stoney was dishonorably discharged for quote unquote being crazy when Stoney has documents to show an honorable discharge and that his sanity is fine.
reputation. Hansen lost a good friend/female relationship. Because of the gossip, Hansen was excommunicated from his church in Texas. After the elders became aware of Stoney's videos, Hansen is too humiliated to attend his high school reunion. If someone saw the videos,
Oh my god, he can't go to the high school reunion. You know, he'd be disappointed when he goes when he sees that everyone he went to high school with has also grown up. No one there for him to try to be friendly with.
Hansen fears an unhinged Stoney may randomly show up one day and kill him. There remain dozens of videos on YouTube from others who believed Stoney and so created videos of their own, which will continue to slander Hovind, Jones, and Hansen into the future.
Well, you could try actually proving all the stuff wrong and just relying on that, or you could file a fucking lawsuit years after the fact.
E. At E-Relief, RX Usted 161. Plaintiffs demand judgment against the defendant for compensatory damages in excess of $75,000 arising from damages to their reputations and from pain and suffering in the form of mental anguish, emotional distress, and loss of income attributable to defendant Stoney's actions. The plaintiffs request interest from the date of injury, plus the costs of this action, and such other, further and different relief as the court may deem just, and proper. Plaintiffs request a trial by jury on all issues so triable. Submitted on this, the 10th day of December, 2025.
It's just absolutely freaking crazy. And yes, we made it to the end. That is the entirety of the document as I had transcribed. There's all the filing stuff where you can see that civil filing fee non-prisoner was $405 paid in cash. So 400 some odd dollars, probably of DAL money, went to filing this piece of crap. So yeah, that uh, that is that. I mean, what else do you say, really? It's just, gonna move a few things around here. Cool, there we go. We're at my little background. There we go. That was the entirety. Absolute madness. Only 2 hours, 50 minutes. Not bad. Um, alright. So, I don't have additional comments. I've said everything I need to say. No trial by snoo snoo. That's too dignified a death. It's gonna be interesting seeing where this goes. Um, if anyone who has connections to Mark Stoney would know could relay that, well, actually he can't. I was gonna say if he wants to talk about this, I am game, but that is the thing you do not do at all. Stoney needs to say absolutely nothing related to any of this. Again, not legal advice, but um anyone who has connections to him, just let him know I'm hoping the absolute best from this. That I don't believe he did anything wrong. Some stuff, as I said, may have been a bit much in the moment, but I also know that if you taper off from stuff, that's a sign that that's positive in this. Like, okay, I've stopped saying the things. I don't know. Just if anyone can relay that, I hope the best. That would make me feel really good. That being said, I'm done with this. May or may not stream again later. Don't know. We're all just having fun here. I'll be in Discord. Thanks, Soot. Um, and I mean, and if he does want to talk about this at all, like in private, I am game. You can get him the email. Private discussion between two individuals is its own thing. I don't want to make anything public. But that's cool if he doesn't. Totally understand it. But yeah. Um, Everyone out there, stay safe. Don't let the Hovind sue you. Much love. I'll catch everyone next time. And check out the links below and like the video and share it and all that. I really appreciate it. And yes, you're very welcome for the stream and has adequate funding to defend himself. I don't think this will get that far, Polyphonics. I don't think it's going to get to a point of being an actual trial case. I think he's going to be all right. I hope so, most definitely, but I truly think this won't go far. But yeah, again, be in Discord.